A forgotten class. Bring, 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 bring. The alarm is ringing, and I pick up my phone to turn it off, as well as clarifying that it's the day I've waited for. 27 of 4th, 2005. Me and my class are getting a new teacher. This made me curious, and the difficulties of getting up in the morning are usually more than today. When I try to choose clothes, I hear my mom call for me to see if I'm awake. I open the door and answer that I'm awake while smelling the traditional smell of freshly brewed coffee and breakfast. On my way downstairs, I thought about what Christopher, our former teacher, told me the other day. It was something about his new life and that he maybe will see me in the future. After I eat the last crumbs of my breakfast, I get dressed and go to school. Juan meets me up in the entrance and tells me that the new teacher looked very interesting. The clock rings and we head down to our classroom. Hey, my name is Monica and I'm going to be a new teacher in most of the subjects. She said it with a very serious glance, and I realized that it's going to be a full session of learning this year, which is great. In all these great feelings, something also seems wrong, because Christopher really just disappeared without anyone knowing why. The whole lesson, I tried to keep focus at the task, but it felt like someone tried to reach me inside. I looked around, I felt some kind of frigidity, and wondered, am I crazy? The second the bell called for a break, my whole body twitched. I stood up for a break like everyone else, but in mind that I need to do or find out what happened to Christopher. During my walking journey back to the classroom, I saw a door almost open. A door that otherwise always is closed. I sneaked into the room but couldn't see anything, so I went inside. A cold wind surged through my body, and I barely breathed right. The deep darkness scared me, but not as much as the door behind me that was closed, even though I stood still the whole time. My soul felt heavier and heavier, and I tried to take some steps back, but my body and the control over myself was turned to something or someone else. It was a completely silence and black field of view. Suddenly, the room lit up with an eerie glow, revealing the ghostly outlines of desks and chairs that seemed frozen in time. The whiteboard was the rest of a lesson long part past, and the air was charged with unspoken tragedy. It hit me that this was the forgotten class. The one Christopher has mentioned. The one that harbored a mystery that avoided everyone's knowledge. As I stood there, paralyzed in the spectral glow, a figure appeared from the shadows. Christopher, the teacher who had vanished for an unknown reason. His presence was a mix of sorrow and desperation that made the whole room feel uncomfortable. The ghostly man turned toward me, and his hollow eyes bored into my soul. A ghostly whisper started to rumble the events that led to his disappearance. The classroom, once a place for learning, had become nothing but hell. He takes some steps around me and stops behind. I feel the soft and numbing tears drop and his wet long hair over my back as he told me what he had done. The consequences of his action had trapped not only him, but also an entire class in limbo between the living and the dead. The unlucky students, forever stuck in a loop of unfinished lessons, reached out for help through the whispers that I haunted me earlier. Christopher told me about the ritual that had caused all this suffering. With a few more words, he told me that the only one who could take the students away and make everything right. My continued lifeless body was forced to make no reaction when I understood that killing the new, guiltless teacher was the only way to save the forgotten class and Christopher. With an instant shining moment, I was transferred back to the real world. And the time I opened up my eyes, I stood with my hand on the door. I knew what I had to do. Welcome back, Christopher. How could I thank you enough? Don't let anyone know. The end.
The traumatizing skiing trip. Daughter and son. Dad, can't you tell us about the story from when you were young? About the terrifying killer in the forest in Norway, please? No, I really shouldn't, and it's late. Son, come on, we're old enough to stay awake a little longer, and we got no school tomorrow. Okay, if you insist, but don't say tomorrow that you were scared and couldn't sleep. Your mom will kill me. Daughter, yes, we promise. Okay, you ready? It was an early morning in 2001. The sun hadn't gone up yet and everybody was tired. We were 8 people, only containing my best friends, and the trip of our life has just begun, we thought. We went up in 2 different minibuses, one fancier than the other. Jessica, Adam, Amanda and I got the trash van, of course, and Josh, Stan, Steven and Olivia had a nice one. We all left our little hometown at the same time, but it didn't take long before we were far behind. Because we did a no-rest road trip, we joked around and told each other the scariest horror stories we had known of, just to get some laughs in the long and dark night. Just after 2 hours after the takeoff, our first problem appeared. We had driven over a spike and our back tire on the driver's side had popped. But against all hopes, there was 2 headlights coming towards us. An elderly couple stopped by and offered to help us, which felt like a gift sent from God, because they had a tire that fit perfectly on our van. After we took off again to catch up to the other group, after 12 hours in a shitty van, we arrived in Åre. Everybody we met there was very happy, and we got welcomed by the staff when we checked in. The first 2 days went by normal, but on the third, it all began. After a whole day in the mountains, we checked in at the afterski, and only 30 minutes in, we saw a guy tripping on a wire and smashed his head on the speaker. Everybody in the area was shocked and watched as the police arrived to move the body. After that, we went home and tried to forget what has happened and tried to go to sleep. I couldn't sleep. I felt something creepy crawling in my body, as if someone was watching me. My room was on the bottom floor, which meant I had a whole forest right outside my window. I turned side to side for hours, but then one time I laid facing the window and I saw 2 bright eyes staring right at me between the bushes. It felt as we made eye contact, but then it just disappeared back between the bushes. I don't know how long that thing had been watching me, what it wanted or what it was. The day after we sat at the breakfast table, I asked my buddy Josh if he had seen the same figure as I saw, since he had a room above me. He just looked at me and laughed. I had got bad luck on the roulette we played, so the dishes were on me and Chris this morning. All the others were ready out in the slopes. Chris had felt a little sick, which meant I went out alone to look for all the others. I wrote to most of the guys asking where they were, but I got no response. I took the big lift to the top and went down hoping to find them, but halfway through I saw someone waving at me just between some trees. Without any hesitation, I tried to get to him, but strangely enough, he turns around and started to ski away, and the closer I got, which had me confused. I followed him into the forest and made my best not to crash in the trees. He was a skilled skier, so I thought it was Adam, but after he made a sharp turn, he just disappeared. I stopped and thought, what the fuck? Where did he go? I looked up at the trees and I saw Steven hanging from a wrench, lifeless. Right there at the moment, I just fell on my knees and cried. I tried to get my phone out as fast as possible to call Amanda, but I dropped it in the snow. Covered and wet by the snow, I called Amanda, but it went straight to the voicemail. I started to punch the snow builder beside me and yelling, No, this can't be true. No service on the phone and way out in the forest. I put the skis in my arm and ran as fast as I could back to the cabin. Crying my eyes out, I called everyone, and Adam answered with a worried voice. I yelled at him to take the rest of the group home. We gathered around the table and I spilled what I saw. They didn't believe me until they all started to wonder where he was. In seconds, the panic was at all-time high. I had a duty to locate the body, and to this day I remember these few hours very well. But when I felt like we stood up in the same place where I was a couple hours ago, there was nobody to be found. We looked up at every tree, and with the night settling in, it didn't get any easier. Long way into the forest, and the time working against us, we were forced to take out every flashlight we had. Jessica, did you hear that? Quiet everyone, quiet. Ah! Help! Then the voice disappeared away. Everybody yelled and looked around to see who got taken away. Amanda? Amanda, where are you? We ran and yelled hoping to find Amanda and scare off the killer. The adrenaline was extremely high, but not in a good way. I could feel my heartbeat pounding on my chest. I saw blood in the snow. Just there the world stopped for a second. Then I said, "Hey guys, take a look at this." The blood continued running 3 or 4 meters, then up a big tree, and there she was, bound to the tree, dead. Jessica took off running, and I followed. I never felt such a feeling in my body before. Emptiness, darkness, and loneliness. I don't remember how, but we got back to the cabin. We called the police. The police came and searched in the forest and took away Amanda and Steven in a body bag. No killer, no DNA, or no weapon was there to be found. We weren't there when the investigation happened, but that's what the police told us afterwards. I packed my bag and told everyone to leave now, because I refused to spend another second in that town. To this day, we don't know anything about the killer, but we all call him the Forest Killer. And that's the end of the story. Son, one more time, please. No, Not this time. Now you need to go get some rest. Good night.
In the autumn of 1947, a family named Anderson, ready for a fresh start, moved into a charming two-story house on the outskirts of a small town called Georgetown, Texas. The house was filled with the promise of a new beginning. There was a dark secret that would soon unravel the lives of the unsuspecting family. The Andersons, consisting of John, Susan and their 2 children, Emily and Peter, were initially thrilled by the charm of their new home. However, as the first night came, an unsettling energy. Their rooms felt cold and the floorboards creaked too much. Emily woke up in the middle of the night after hearing something from the roof talking with a deep and low voice, while also feeling a hard pressure in the chest every time she heard the voice. She had a feeling that she wasn't supposed to hear that, because every time the voice began, it started to hurt in the chest. Out of curiosity, Emily walks out of bed and heads towards the ladder up to the roof to see who's up there. She takes one step at a time on the ladder. After the third step, the ladder creaks loudly and the voice stops making noises. She opens the door to the roof fast and loud. It's nothing there but an old wooden chair with a doll sitting on top. The doll had red hair in tassels, glassy white eyes without pupils, and a white and red dress full of dirt. Emily closes the door in horror and runs back to the bed on the creaking floorboards and goes to sleep with a tiny tear in the side of her eye. The next morning, the family discussed about how the night felt weird, but John didn't believe in Emily and told her that it was just a nightmare. Susan, however, couldn't shake the uneasy feeling she had throughout the night, and even Peter, the usually carefree younger brother, admitted to hearing odd sounds. After hearing the stories, John felt a weird feeling that someone or something was watching them. As days turned into weeks, the Andersons' new home revealed more of its secrets. Doors creaked open on their own, whispers echoed in empty rooms, and shadows seemed to appear in the corners of their eyes. One night, when the whole family was asleep, Emily woke up all of a sudden hearing someone whispering in her left ear. They already died. She slowly started to turn her head. When she saw the red-headed doll sitting on the bedside table, looking right at the door in front of the bed, she freaked out and started to scream loud as she could, while also throwing her blanket over her head. As soon as her scream ended, her dad was already in her room. He asked her what happened, and when she was about to answer, she realized the doll had disappeared. "It was there, exactly here." John looked at her, not knowing what to say. "The creepy doll, it sat on the bedside table talking to me." "You probably just need some sleep," John said in a calming voice. Days went by without anything happening. At the same time, Susan and Peter had become sick, really sick. A few more days went by, but her mother and brother were still sick and started coughing up blood. Emily couldn't sleep that night. She was just lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. She looked at the clock. 03:13. All of a sudden, she hears footsteps behind the door. She walks up to the door, but there's not to open it. She then crawls down to the floor to see if she can see anything under the door. Nothing. She keeps looking, trying to see anything. The doll then slams down on the floor on the opposite side of the door. Emily didn't scream this time. The doll was fully covered in blood. She slams up the door and runs down to the rest of her family. When she trips over something, she looks back and sees Susan and Peter lying down without eyes and throats cut. She becomes completely mute. She turns around and sees her dad on the wall with the kitchen knife to his head. She's about to pass out, but then hears a voice. "I've won." She slowly turns her head around and sees the now red doll sit on the second step on the stairs. Then reality sets in. She starts to scream in terror and runs out of the house. She keeps running.
The Vanishing Village. Day 1. Henrik was on his way home after work. He looked out the car window and saw the winter coming to an end and leaves started to grow. He turned around and saw his son Olof play with his Transformer toys in the backseat. Henrik took care of Olof himself since his wife died. Her body was never found, which was really strange. After 3 years of waiting to get a message or a call, Henrik had to stop thinking about her and continue with his life, but he couldn't. He looked out the window again and noticed something. He thought something was missing beyond the fields, but he couldn't remember since he was new to the little town, Maplewood. Day 2. Henrik took his leather jacket in his arms and brought his binoculars to investigate what he saw yesterday further. He left his son at the kindergarten 20 minutes earlier and drove towards the small village. This time he saw it. It was a village there, with old houses made of wood and roofs had started to break. He drove closer to see if he was crazy or not. He looked with his binoculars from about 100 meters. Nothing was weird until he saw someone start running. The woman ran against Henrik and shouted for help. Her dress was dirty and her black hair glided through the dirt. Henrik turned around as fast as he could and drove to his job. He felt bad the whole day thinking of the woman all day. When he came home, he went to his neighbors and asked a couple of questions about the village. He got information from an old lady about the village. If you don't live in it, you should never go there. It is cursed, she said. That night, Henrik had trouble sleeping and therefore decided to go to the village tomorrow since he didn't believe in the supernatural and wasn't scared of it. Day 3. Today was the day Henrik was going to investigate the village. He was excited since he always wanted to be a detective. He prepared himself behind a big old tree and short distance away from the village. When he looked around the tree and he saw the screaming woman again. But the village was gone. Not there, not here. It was completely gone. And before he caught his breath, he saw a woman looked exactly like his wife. She stood just in front of him. He couldn't hold his tear back and was sure it must have been real. He ran after her until his legs couldn't hold him. After a blink of an eye, he saw wood. He felt a pillow on his neck, and he was stuck. His wrists were attached to the old bed he laid in. The woman stared at him from the doorway. It was blood everywhere. I could barely see her white dress. She held Olof and saw how lifeless he was. She laughed at Henrik while he screamed of anger and sadness. "What have you done? You evil!" Henrik closed his eyes and hoped it was a nightmare, but it wasn't. The evil woman's eyes turned black. She took her nails and scratched his arm so hard he started bleeding. When Henrik looked again, she was gone. Henrik had lost both his wife and his son. He was thinking, what is the purpose for me to live? Maybe get my son back, maybe kill that witch, maybe, I don't know. Day 4. I'm not going to let you die. You will suffer and live a terrible life in your loneliness. He woke up and realized it was just a dream. Or not, he thought. He looked up and read "Traitor" on his arm. He went outside and read "Traitor" on the wall. His chest started beating. Pulse was racing. "You are not alone" was written in blood on the corridor. And after that day, Henrik always saw the woman with his son staring at him every day he drives by the field, until he took the easy way out. The end.
I just stood there completely frozen. My wife, who went missing 2 years ago, was standing right in front of me. But something wasn't right. She had this forced sound, like she was trying to gimmick her own voice. "Mary, is that you?" It was the only thing I could think of. No, was the response I got. each note turning more and more inhumane to the point where I couldn't even recognize her. TV was on in the living room, broadcasting the news. Reports about a tragic murder all over the screen. How could someone do this? I thought to myself. Come on now, Joe, there has always been evil in this world. Don't let that bring your spirit down. Yeah, I guess you're right. I am an overthinker and have always been. But Mary would always have a quick explanation. This is something I admire about her, and probably one of the reasons I fell in love with her in the first place. I'm going to the grocery store to buy some food. Do you want anything? No, I'm good. Make sure you check the oil. I think it's running a bit low. While she was getting ready to leave, I walked up to the bathroom, ready to take a shower. But that's when I heard it, a gentle voice calling my name in the distance. This voice sounded familiar, almost too familiar. Hello? Is anyone there? No response. I tried again. If anyone is there, answer me right now. Right when I was about to finish my sentence, loud banging started coming from the bedroom. I rushed there as fast as I could, each bang getting louder and louder the closer I came to the door. Then stopped. There I was, standing in front of the door, confused, my blood rate going through the roof. Something wasn't right. It was awfully quiet in there. Too quiet. That didn't stop me. I had to see what was happening. Right as I put my hand on the door handle, it swung open with a force I have never seen before, hitting me right on the head. At the hospital, a nurse walks into the room. I see that you're woken up. Let me go get you a doctor and we'll run some tests. Where am I, and why can't I see anything? I have always been afraid of the dark, but this is something else. It isn't bright or dark. I can't see shapes or lights. It's like there's nothing there. Hello, Mr. Paul. My name is Dr. Decker. We have done some tests on you, and we couldn't find anything death-threatening. So why can't I see, doctor? That's what I was getting to. When you fell, you hit the back of your head, which caused your retinas to be destroyed. Does that mean I will be blind forever? Unfortunately, yes, but look at the bigger picture. You don't have any fatal problems. How could he say that? He is right, but how could I think like that when I will never be able to see again? Speaking of seeing, why haven't I seen my wife? Well, not really seen, but heard. Why isn't she here with me? Hello, sir. My name is Officer Bradford. I have some questions about you and your wife. Okay. Was your wife around when the accident occurred? No. Do you know where she was? Yes, she went to the store to buy some groceries. I'm going to be honest with you. No one has heard from your wife since your accident. What are you trying to say, officer? Your wife has gone missing. 6 months later, the TV was on in the living room, broadcasting the news. Reports about a tragic murder all over the screen. How could someone do this? Oh. I still haven't gotten used to not having Mary here by my side. The last couple of months have been a blur for me. I can't remember the last time I went outside. My food and money are running low. I need to get to the store. 8 p.m. How is it this late already? I have this watch on my hand that tells me how much the time is when I press the button on the side. All the shops are closed. I think. I looked up the stores in the area. Closed. Open. It closes in a half hour. I guess I have to be quick. I ran upstairs to her room, and then the closet. Right when I was about to open the closet, I heard this voice. It sounded familiar. Then I remembered. My wife, who went missing 2 years ago, was standing in front of me, but something wasn't right. She had this forced voice, like she was trying to gimmick her own voice. Mary, is that you? Was the only thing I could think of. No, was the response I got. Each no turning more and more inhumane to the point where I couldn't even recognize her. Mary, stop. Nothing. It's like she disappeared. Then, start again, she said. Something I didn't understand. Come on, Joe. You know I would never hurt you. Just let it happen. Let what happen? What does she mean? Then I started feeling this pain in my head, like someone was banging two metal pipes in an inch from my ears. Let it happen, Joe. Don't fight back. I tried my best to not let it take control of me, but I had nothing left to give. The pain started to fade. I could feel my soul slowly leaving my body. I closed my eyes and let it happen. Joe, wake up. I opened my eyes and there she was, my Mary. How can I see you? What do you mean? Why are you laying her on the floor? I don't understand anything. How could I see again? Why was Mary here? I thought I lost you. Where were you all this time? What do you mean? I just came back from the store. Sometimes it's just a dream.
Welcome to the creepy pod. Ja, det har inget med det att göra egentligen. Men Throughout my childhood, everyone told me a story about an abandoned house deep down in the woods where an old man used to live. But not just any old man, he was a murderer. The rumor says that the old man lost his son when the son was only a few weeks old. The pain after his son's loss turned into anger. The man started to lure children to his house in the night time only to murder them in the basement of the house. The man died a long time ago, but the rumors have it that his ghost still haunts the house. People told me that no one who went there to explore the house ever came back. Every time I heard that story, I thought to myself, what a bunch of nonsense. It can't be real. But I couldn't help but get curious about the old house. So one day, when I was 17, I decided to go to the house and see if anything weird was going on. The day I decided to visit the house, I asked my friend Joe if he knew where the house was and if he wanted to go with me. He told me that he knew where it was, but he absolutely did not want to join me because he was too afraid of the house and its curse. So I decided to go on my own. When I arrived at the location Joe sent me, I stood on a really long dirt road. The house must be at the end of the road, I thought to myself. I decided to park my bike and walk the last bit. Little did I know that the dirt road was so long that when I arrived at the house and picked up my phone, it showed no service. I got a bit paranoid. What would happen if I got lost? Or even worse, got chased by a murderer down that long dirt road? I decided that even though my phone didn't work, I would still continue to explore the house. The sun began to set when I finally got the courage to go and take a look in the house. I went up to the front porch and put my oddly enough sweaty hand on the door handle. It was unlocked. I opened the door just a tiny bit. I stuck my head in and I shouted, "Hello? Anyone there?" No answer. Even though it felt a bit weird, I decided to go in. I opened the door all the way and walked into the hallway. When I stood there, I smelled this disgusting smell. It smelled like a dead animal, or maybe it was a dead human. The smell came from the kitchen. I removed all the cobwebs that covered the door and walked into the kitchen. As I entered the kitchen, the stench got even worse, making me shudder in disgust. Despite the smell, my curiosity pushed me forward. I walked around the kitchen looking for something that could cause the stench. I didn't find anything inside of the kitchen, but when I walked by a door on the way out, the source of the stench became obvious. I opened the door carefully as the hinges creaked. Behind the door was a set of stairs. the basement. With shivers down my spine, I slowly walked down the stairs. The stench got even worse than before. I put my hoodie on over my nose to filter out the disgusting smell. I even wetted the fabric to sort more of the smell out. When I got down the stairs, I saw something absolutely disgusting. 3 big trash bags surrounded by rats. There were a bunch of holes in the bags with entrails hanging out. I shivered. But when I looked around the basement a bit more, I realized something. The entrails weren't from a kid. They were from animal entrails. There were animal skins hanging on the walls of the basement. I thought to myself, how could I be so dumb to believe in this story? The stench that filled the air was no result of human tragedy, but rather the aftermath of something much less sinister. Relieved, I took a moment to absorb the situation, then decided to leave as it was getting really dark outside and I couldn't stand the stench anymore. As I walked out the door, I realized that my shoelaces had come undone. I kneeled down to tie my shoes when I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. Next to my muddy footprints, there were footprints. Footprints from a kid. A chill ran down my spine as I stared at the small footprints next to mine. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. How could there be fresh footprints from a child outside this abandoned house deep inside of the woods? My mind raced with thoughts, trying to make sense of the situation. I scanned the area, half expecting a ghost or something to stand in the dark waiting to reveal itself. But I didn't see anything or anyone. But the stench I smelled inside of the house suddenly came back. It made it hard to breathe. I felt like someone was looking at me, but I still didn't see anyone. Overwhelmed by the unsettling discovery, I sprinted back through the woods with my heart pounding in my chest. The child's footprints seemed to echo in my mind, making me run even faster. As I reached the end of the long dirt road, I was totally out of breath. I mounted my bike and pedaled as fast as I could, leaving the house and its secrets behind. When I finally emerged from the woods, the moonlit night transformed into the familiar glow of streetlights. The sense of relief washed over me. I stopped my bike, looking back one last time, almost expecting to see shadows in the woods, but still, no one there. I pedaled my way back home to safety. From that night onward, I got this weird feeling, really weird, every time I went close to the woods, because I knew it held secrets I probably never would discover.
My family in the USA is Christmas decorating their house. They were about to put up the Christmas tree when they heard a loud bang at the door. So the father in the family told his family to stay where they were, and he walked towards the door. But when he opened the door, nobody was there, and he started to shout if somebody were there, but he didn't get an answer. So he walked back to his family in the living room. When he was about to tell his family that nobody were there, someone knocked at the door in the back, and now his family started to get scared. But when the father walked to check the back door, nobody were there either. Now the father started to get scared and angry. Then he walked into the living room again, but this time nothing happened. So they thought it was just some kids playing. So they got back to decorating the Christmas tree, and they didn't think more of that. for the rest of the night. When the father put his children to bed, the father walked downstairs and watched TV for a while, and then he walked around the house and turned off the lights and locked the doors. Then he went to bed. But he lay there and couldn't sleep. He had a bad feeling about the knocks on the doors earlier, so he got out of bed to check if the doors were locked. And when he got to the front door, it was locked. And when he was about to check the back door, it was unlocked. So he opened the door and looked around, but saw nothing. So he locked the back door and got back to sleep. When he woke up the next morning, he felt that it was very cold in the house. So he put on his clothes and walked downstairs. And when he came to the back door, it was wide open. So he closed the door and put his shoes on and walked around the house looking for someone that would have sneaked into the house during the night. But he didn't find anything, so he went back into the house. Later that day, the father drove with his family to the store to buy groceries. When they pulled out of the neighborhood, the father saw a car pull up behind her. He didn't think more of that until he realized the same car pulled into the parking lot of the store. So he took his family and walked into the store, took a cart where he started to put the groceries in. And the children wanted to look in the toys section, so they walked towards the toys. And when they were looking at the toys, they saw a strange man looking from an aisle a few meters away. And when the father saw that the man was staring, the man pretended to look at something in the shelf. When the kids found the toy they wanted, they got to walk towards checkout. But on the way to the checkout, the father saw some home security cameras. So he thought, why not buy them? So he took 2 cameras and went to the checkout. And when he was about to pay, he looked around, and the same strange man in the line looked at him. He didn't think more of that. He just thought he was shopping groceries for himself. So he started to pack his things and went back to his car. When he got back home, he packed up his groceries and started to mount the cameras. He put one camera over the front door and the other one over the back door, and he put the third camera in the corner of the living room ceiling. So the camera pointed over the whole living room and kitchen. Then he sat down to watch TV. He wanted to see what the cameras looked like, so he looked at the app in his phone, and exactly in that moment he got into the app. He saw someone run by the back door camera, so he switched to the front door camera, but nobody was there. So he walked to the back door, checked if someone were there, but nobody was there as usual. So he got to bed and started to get more and more scared, to wonder what happened in the last 2 days. The next day, when he woke up, he had got a notification on his phone that someone had opened the back door and moved in the living room. When he watched the footage, he saw that a shadow has been moving around in his living room and kitchen. So he ran downstairs to see if someone was there. But when he came downstairs, he saw that somebody had knocked down a flower vase, and the water from the vase was dripping down the kitchen island. And he got even more scared, so he started to panic, because it could be someone in the house. So he locked both doors and put the chair under a handle, so you couldn't press the handle down. Then he started to clean up the water and the glaze from the vase. Later that day, when he was about to go to bed, he checked the chairs under the doors and saw that the doors were closed. And when he had trouble when I double checked the doors that they were locked, he got to bed. But when he woke up and got downstairs, both chairs laid on the floor, and in the back door was unlocked. When he checked the cameras, a masked man had picked the lock on the back door and walked into the house. So now the father started to get really scared and said to his wife to pack your things and go. So the wife picked up the baby from the bed, and now they said They said that one of them always has to watch the baby. The father called the cops, and when the cops arrived, they asked what had happened. And when the father showed the camera footage, but the cop just left it off and said they couldn't do anything because he was masked. So the cop just drove off in his car, but as soon as they left, the father and wife heard a weird sound from upstairs. They looked at each other, and the father ran up the stairs, searched the whole area. But then he came back downstairs and shook his head. He didn't find anything upstairs. He told his wife to pack her things and go to her parents' house, so they would be safe, and he will take care of everything that happens in the house. When the wife was done packing the bags, they looked one of the cars and drove off to her parents' house. When he had left the house, the father walked to the closet where he had a baseball bat. So he took the bat and walked around the house and searched for the intruder, but he didn't find anything. So he sat down in the sofa and started to watch TV. He decided that he would be up the whole night and sleep on the sofa. When the father almost fell asleep, he heard a noise from the back door. He sat up and picked up the bat and the flashlight. Then he started to walk slowly towards the door, and when he was 5 meters away from the door, he saw that the door was open slowly. So he walked back, and when the door was fully open, he raised the bat and pointed a flashlight at the intruder and walked slowly towards him.
Killer Instinct. 5 nights left. The sun shined through my window in the morning, and it shined in my eyes. I was blinded for a second whilst I gathered my thoughts. I reluctantly made my way out of bed. I forced myself to get ready for work. My eyes were still half closed as I stumbled through my apartment. I made my way to the couch and turned on the news. Another murder has happened tonight. This is the 15th murder that's happened day after day. When will the murders be stopped? When will the police catch the killer? Check back here every day for the news. Now, over to the weather. It's looking like it's gonna be a sunny day. I turned off the TV and sat in silence as I thought. Another one? How could it still go on? What are police doing? I looked down to my clock that said 0640. I sighed heavily and stood up as I had to get to work. As I got dressed, I thought, day after day, the same things over and over again. Work, eat, sleep, work, eat, sleep. It's miserable. I walked down the cold street on my way to work. When I got there, I couldn't help but feel empty. Something was missing. I pushed those thoughts away again and said to myself, this is my life, and it will always be. As I made my way into the office, I put on a fake smile and greeted my coworkers. I typed on my computer the same things over and over again for hours on end. The screen made my eyes burn, my body felt weak, my mind was bored and tired after long work days. The only thing I could think of was, when does this stop? When can I stop working? When will my life get interesting? These thoughts always floated in my mind, but I always pushed them away. I knew this was my life, this was the way I would live and the way I would die. Tired, overworked, and hoping for something more. My phone rang as the clock turned 20:00 and my overtime shift was over. I had to work the long days to afford rent, so I always walked home late with heavy eyelids and a weak mind. This time something was different about the street I walked on. Something startled me. I felt like something was wrong. I continued walking and pushed those thoughts aside. I felt the cold breeze run along my neck and sent shivers down my spine. I hurried up my steps, almost running along the street. I felt watched. I felt like prey. When I got back to my apartment, I quickly shut the door and locked everything. I breathed heavily as my heartbeat steadied down. I ate some and went straight to bed. I twisted and turned for hours as I couldn't fall asleep, thinking, what was that? Was I followed? No. My mind was playing a trick on me. I'm just tired, that's all. 4 nights left. The next day, I woke up with less than an hour of sleep. I turned on the news and watched as a reporter said, "Another murder has happened tonight. This is the 16th murder that has happened day after day. When will the murder spree stop? When will police catch the killer? Check back here every day for news." Now, over to the weather. It looked like it's gonna be snowing today. I turned off the TV and tried to calm down myself. Nothing was going to happen to me. This is just from the lack of sleep, I said to myself, but I knew I was lying. I knew it had been something watching me the other day. As the clock hit 0640, I left for work and walked down the same street as I always do. But something felt different. Something was strange. I didn't know what it was, but it sent shivers down my spine. I hurried to work and my day went on as usual, long and tedious. Then as the clock hit 20:00, I stopped working overtime and walked out of the office building. I looked around the cold street. I didn't see anyone, but I felt strange. A feeling in my gut told me that it wasn't a good idea walking back. I still walked back and felt like someone was watching me. Someone was out for me. My heartbeat quickened and sweat ran down my face. My vision was blurry and my legs weak. The sound of snow beneath my feet was the only thing I could focus on. I kept walking and walking. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew I had to run. As panic hit in, I ran as fast as I could back to my apartment. I quickly closed the door behind me and locked everything. The rest of the night, my heart beating faster than it ever had before. The sweat running down my face as I sat down against the wall. My head felt heavy. I was shaking as I thought, what was that? What was out for me? During the night, I passed out from exhaustion. 3 nights left. When I woke up, I felt a cold breeze run through my apartment. One of the windows was slightly open. The blood drained from my face and I went pale. I ran up and closed the window. That day I called in sick for work and stayed home. All I could do was look around my apartment. I didn't find any traces of a break-in. The door was fine, the windows were fine, and no one except me were in the apartment. I turned on the news and heard reporters say, "Tonight another person got killed. This is a total of 17 dead people in 17 days. When will this stop?" Then I turned off the news and began hyperventilating as I thought, another one is dead. Could I be next? These thoughts ran through my mind repeatedly. Sweat ran down my face as I walked over to the bathroom with shaky steps. I leaned over the sink as I splashed cold water across my face. I took heavy breaths as I looked and saw my own reflection. My eyes shaking as I stared into my own soul. I couldn't stand it. I was a wreck. I wasn't myself. Seeing myself in the mirror both infuriated me and scared me. Before I knew it, the mirror was shattered in pieces and my fist covered in blood. The color drained from my face as I looked at my fist. I turned on the sink again and cleaned my hand from glass shards and blood. I thought to myself, why did I do that? What is with me? Later that night, I couldn't stop looking at myself through the broken mirror. Something about it was both thrilling and mesmerizing. I couldn't stand it. But I just couldn't look away. I didn't sleep that night. 2 nights left. In the morning, my alarm startled me. I then walked over to the couch and sat down as I turned on the news. This night is the first time in 17 days that a murder hasn't happened. Did the killer stop? But most importantly, when will police catch this killer? And back to the weather. Today it will be a snowy day, the reporter said. I sat confused as I thought to myself, is it over? Can everything go back to normal? I didn't know, and I didn't want to risk it anything. So I called in sick for work and stayed home during the day. As the day went on, I felt strange. I felt unnerved. Something was still wrong. My hand tingled and I felt uneasy. Something called for me. I didn't know what, but something did. It felt like instinct. A feeling I couldn't just push away. That night I was restless. I walked around my apartment with my hands balled into fists and with heavy breathing. I couldn't get the feeling out of my mind. I had to do something. I didn't know what, but something called for me. I couldn't sleep that night. The last night is coming. In the morning, I was drained from energy. I could barely stand on my legs as I headed to the living room. With shaky hands, I reached for the TV remote and reluctantly turned on the news. The news report said, "Another night without a murder as the killer disappeared. We do not know quite yet. We are waiting for the police to finish their investigation. Now, over to the weather. It will be a snowy and cold day." I turned off the news and breathed out heavily as I thought, everything will be fine. Everything. I don't know why, but I stood up and walked towards my door. I walked out of my apartment building, the snow cracking underneath me, and the cold breeze running across my face. I wandered through the streets aimlessly. I felt a surge of fear run through my body as I wandered. It was thrilling. I didn't want this feeling to stop. This was the only days when I wasn't bored or unmotivated. I was scared. I was uneasy. I was thrilled. The feeling of not knowing if this was my doom, if this was the end. It was addicting. As the night approached, I walked through the dimly lit streets. I saw people walking by, staring at me. My eyes heavy and steps shaky. I then heard a faint cracking sound from the snow behind me. Someone followed me. Someone was out for me. It was exhilarating. My heart beating faster than it ever had before. Instincts told me that I had to run. But I couldn't. I couldn't run. I didn't want to run. I wanted to face it. I kept walking as a sickening smile played on my face. I was terrified to my core. I was excited. Everything went black, and before I knew it, my knuckles bled. Blood trickled down my hands and onto the snow. I looked behind me. I couldn't believe what I saw. A man with his face mauled and unrecognizable. I did it. I killed him. I trusted my instincts. A sickening smile played across my face as I quietly laughed. I walked back into the night and felt alive, content. I might even say happy. All this time I hadn't feared someone else. I had feared myself. I should have never trusted my instincts. But I did.
The escape. I jumped onto the school bus at the last second. When I searched for a place to sit, I see Jack at the back of the bus. I sit down next to him and he says, "Hello, how's it going?" I tell him that everything's good. He keeps asking me and says, "What are you going to do this weekend?" "My family are going to our vacation house, so I'm going to be home alone. Maybe we should hang out this weekend." "It's a great idea. Maybe we should ask if some more people want to come," said Jack. We get closer to the school, and when we get off the bus we see Tyler, Julie and Nora. Jack and I get the same idea of asking if they want to hang out with us at the weekend. And they want to. We started to plan our weekend. But when we came up with something to do, the school bell rang and we had to go to class. The day goes on slowly, and at every break we talk about what we're going to do when we get to my house. It's the last evening before we go to my house, and when I turn on the TV, I see the news about the prison. When I look closer, I see that it's the prison in our city. The news reporter tells us that the electricity broke down in the prison and the cell doors stopped working. They didn't close, and during that moment of trouble, one prisoner escaped. More specific, a serial killer. The serial killer had been in prison for 15 years of his life sentence. Now the police warn everyone to not be outside during the night. I think about the news all night, and I think about whether I should let my parents go away with all that's happening in our city. But I came up with the conclusion that I should let them go, and I can handle myself. In the morning my parents ask me if it's really okay if they leave me alone, but I tell them that I'm not going to feel alone. Some of my friends are coming over to me and we're going to hang out. My mom says, if that's so, then I think it's okay for us to leave. It's Friday, and I think about tonight, because it's the day when my friends are coming over to me However, I still have to go to school before, but that's not so bad. Me and my friends only get more time to plan our weekend. The day goes on fast, and it's time to go home. My friends are coming to me at 6 p.m. I have a lot to prepare, fix snacks and something to drink. But right when I'm done, I hear a car. It's Jack, Tyler, Julia and Nora. I open the door and I start to greet them. We go inside into the living room, where I had prepared some snack and drink for the evening. But that's not our biggest priority now, because we're starving. I have bought things so we can cook tacos. I prepared all the vegetables and the guacamole. The things left is the fried minced meat. When the food is finished, we start to eat. Everything tastes very good, and we're having a great time. I ask my friend if we should play some game or something. Everyone thinks it's a great idea. We play many games, both board games and some of my PS5. Everything is peaceful, and we enjoy the time. Jack goes to the kitchen and gets us some more to drink. Then he sees something. Oh shit, I think I saw a man staring at me. It's nothing, stop being a coward, I said calmly. Okay, then I'll ignore it, says Jack. We watch TV. When I'm about to change to a movie, we see the news. It's the same news as earlier today, about the serial killer. The reporter says that the killer has been seen in the forest earlier this day. It looks like he searched for something, maybe an empty house that he could take. The police warn everybody to not be outside alone, especially not in the forest. If you live in the forest, be alert and look for signs of a killer if you see a man in the forest. And most important, be prepared and lock the doors and windows. Great, like we're not alone in the forest, all alone, I said ironically. I can deal with this. Maybe the man I saw was a killer, says Jack. No, nothing's going to happen with us. We just stay inside and don't go out, says Nora. Okay, I guess we're fine if we stay inside, says Jack. We start the movie that we would have been done before we saw the news. We start to lose up, and the tense of fear starts to fade away. But just then, we hear a stick snaps. What's that? Jack asks with fear. It's probably just a deer or something, says Nora. Just when we start to calm down again, I hear something scrape on the door. I go look if we see something's outside the door. It's a man. He's got a crowbar. My heart froze. I didn't know what to do. Julie's acting faster than us. She tells everyone to go and hide in the garret. We start to run up to the garret, trying to do so the man doesn't see where we go and hide. We keep our voice down so the man couldn't hear even a little clue where we are. But then I hear a loud scratch. But then just after it stopped. Maybe he gave up trying to break in, Tyler said. Just maybe, Julia answered. We go down and check if it's clear. I go first because it's my house, and Tyler is right behind me if something should happen. When I go down, I saw it. One of the most terrifying views of my life. There he was, in the kitchen. The serial killer from the news. The one that escaped from prison. Now everybody has seen him, in the kitchen. We searched for something. We had hid until he found what he searched for. What does he have in his hand? I ask. It's a knife. It's not a small one, says Julie. What are we going to do? I ask. We try to sneak out the door without him hearing us. We try to get out fast, but very quiet. But just when we're about to go through the door, Jack hit a vase, which flew to the ground and makes a loud noise. He sees us, and he starts to come after us. But he's slow, and we manage to escape in the forest. We hide behind a bush, where we can see if the serial killer comes after us. We haven't seen him anywhere. We hear a scream, and that's when we notice. Julie's not here. We start to search for her, where she is. Then we see a body on the ground. It's Julie, and she's dead. The blood drips and creates a pool of blood. What do we have here? Says a mysterious voice from the dark corner of the house. Who's there? I scream. Out of the darkness comes a bloody man with a knife dripping with blood. I take out my phone and try to call the cops. You don't want to do that, says the killer. I put down my phone and ask, what are you going to do with us? I'm not going to do anything to you. If you just follow me into the house, says the killer. We go into the house and the serial killer starts to point at Jack. He says, follow me. Jack starts to freak out and he doesn't want to go. He starts to sweat, but he's forced to follow him into the kitchen. Jack tries to get away from the man, but then we hear a scream. We rush to the kitchen to see what's happened, and there he is, Jack laying on the floor, fighting to stay alive. The serial killer says, just do what I said, and there's not going to be a problem. We start to hear a loud noise. It's the cops. When did you call the cops? The man asks. When you talked about what you have to do to not be killed, Nora hid behind Tyler and called the cops, I said. The serial killer started to run. He ran out in the forest until we can't see him anymore. The police officer came into the house and asked what's happened. Tyler just said, he killed them. Killed who? The police officer said. But Tyler just started pointing at Jack. The police check if he's still breathing. But it's too late, he's dead. It's another one outside, a girl named Nora. But the police asked, where's the serial killer? He ran into the forest, right when we heard you were coming. The police says, we're going to search for him. Stay here and don't go anywhere. The police came back and they say, he's nowhere to be found. It's been 3 weeks since 2 of my friends were killed. The serial killer hasn't been seen since then, but the police still try to find him, and all the people in the city helps and tells the police if they see a man that looked the same as the serial killer. Be warned, this is not the last time the serial killer is going to try to go after some people. Be careful, he's still out there somewhere. You're never safe, especially not alone in the forest.
The deep spruce forest. 3 British guys discussed about going away on a vacation. 2 of them wanted to travel to Thailand and 1 of them wanted to go on a hike in 3 days in north Sweden. After a long discussion, they decided to hike in north Sweden. On 7th July 1972, they started the first day on these hikes. And they get out from the car for the last time without knowing. One thing they don't know is that on the trip there is a forest of rituals on the trees with a symbol that shows it's a dangerous big animal that lives in a deep spruce forest and no one has dared to enter the forest. Day 1. 7th July 1972, on the morning of 3 days hike. The first day was to get up to a big mountain to set up camp during the night. After an hour of walking, they felt a little tired in their legs, so they take 10 minutes break to get their energy back. One of the guys, Martin, started talking about if they will make it. It's a very long way to go up. Kyle, one of the guys, sat there and laughed and said, no, she will make it. We can't go up after 1 hour, Martin. 10 minutes had passed. Kyle kept walking up to the mountain. One of their friend groups, Jack, saw a big eagle fly around in circles and hunting for food. They ignore the eagle first and keep walking straight up to the mountain. It was only 200 meters from the top. Then saw 4 more eagles starting to hunt, and everyone got confused because the eagles came closer and closer. Kyle, Jack and Martin started to run up instead to walk since they wanted to set up a camp and sit around the campfire. All I want now is to sit close to the campfire and drink some whiskey and on the chill, said Jack, painting and tired of everybody. However, after 2.5 hours, they finally came up. Martin said, guys, do you see the deep spruce forest down there? Jack, that's the deep spruce forest I ever seen. While they were talking, Kyle fixed up the tent because he was tired and wanted to go to sleep early. After 1 hour, everyone sat around the campfire except Martin. He stood and looking down to the deep forest. He felt that the forest was something different from the ordinary spruce forest, so that the eagles they saw earlier had been flying around the forest in 40 minutes, and Martin got confused. Day 2, 18 July 1972 at 7 AM. They woke up and it's cold, so they hurried up and started to go down from the hill and only keep going to the next night. One thing they don't know was that when they passed the deep spruce forest, Martin saw a abandoned car just outside the woods. Martin, it was the scariest car I ever seen. Kyle, yeah, I agree, but I was driving in the middle of nowhere. They passed the car and after a couple of minutes Jack saw the destination a mile away. So they discussed whether the forest is a shortcut to the destination. They decide to go into the forest and that they don't know, or it would be the biggest mistake in their life. They started to walk in and the clock was 2:45 p.m. and maybe it was the last time they saw the light of the sun. Later of the forest trip, it got darker and darker since the woods are so deep and they heard weird sounds from animals. The sounds get louder and louder with every single meter they take. Then, after 10 minutes, they heard a scream they'd never have heard before. Guys, it feels like it's a really big animal or a monster out there. Everyone got scared and wanted to escape from the forest so quickly as possible. But it got darker and darker after every single minute. So they have to find a place to sleep, but there are trees everywhere. But Jack saw something on the trees. It was rituals that shows a human stuck in a tree. It was a warning that indicates that you should not continue. After a couple of hours, they finally find a little house in the middle of nowhere. Jack, Martin and Kyle went in together because it was kinda scary after all creepy sounds they had heard before. They are looking everywhere to complete a safe sleep place, but it heard a creepy sound again, but much closer. So Kyle looking outside with a flashlight, but he didn't see something. Later that, they decide to sleep, but they can't move. So they can move to the destination early tomorrow. Day 3. Night in July 1972 at 6 p.m. They woke up. It started with them looking out and seeing nothing. So Kyle, Martin and Jack decided to move on. But around the corner, they saw deer hung in a tree and everyone got confused, and at the same time they heard a heavy footsteps. So they started to run for their life. Martin tripped on a rock and looking back and seen a big monster. Kyle and Jack tried to run back and help Martin, but it was too late. The monster caught Martin and ran away with Martin. Kyle and Jack regretted the whole trip in Sweden. They have lost their best friend, maybe, and the only thing they could do right now was to find a way out from this deep forest as quickly as possible. Eventually, so they find a way out. Kyle and Jack only run and run, and finally they see light from the sun. They keep running, and after 2 minutes Jack realized that he had forgotten his lunchbox, and Jack ran back and tried to find his food. Later he finally found his food box, but that was not the only thing he found. It was Martin stuck in a tree, a big spruce tree with branches through the body, and his stomach was open. Jack screamed that loud, so he heard the monster again, and he was close to the fainting. He tried to keep running to Kyle. After a couple of minutes, he finally came to Kyle, and Jack told everything to Kyle what's happened with Martin. Kyle gets speechless, and the only thing he talked about was to keep his life. They started to keep running to the light of the two of Jack and Kyle, thought they had finally arrived. Eventually, they will see a small village with many people sitting down and praying to this monster. Kyle and Jack get confused and they scream for help, but no one's answer. After a couple of minutes, Kyle chose to go up to them and see if you could communicate with them. But when he arrived, the monster also appeared. Everyone tried to run into the house, but Jack didn't make it because he was too far back. The monster caught Jack and ran away with him. Kyle heard a scream from back. Help, help, please help. But no one could help, because the monster was too quickly and no one could run to get him back. Day 4. 20 July 1972 at 7 a.m. Kyle wake up from the worst night in his life. He decides to only run and run to maybe come out from this deep forest. He searched and researched for the light from the sun, and after 3 hours of hunting the light, he finally found a way out. He also found a road 100 meters away. He ran to the road and searched for calls. Kyle heard a car right towards him. He waited to the car and the car stopped and asked him what he's doing here. He tells the driver that he's been in the deep spruce forest, and the car driver understands everything what he's been through. Kyle also says that they lost his 2 best friends in the forest to a big monster, and he's the only one that is still alive today.
The dark city, in the town of Oskarshamn, where the cobblestone streets echoed with the whispers of centuries past, a young girl named Clara navigated the winding alleys and historic squares. Oskarshamn, with its old world charm and maritime atmosphere, seemed like an unlikely setting for a tale of terror. However, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the picturesque town, Clara's evening took a dark turn. Clara, with her chestnut hair and a spirit as free as the wind, found herself alone on the deserted streets after an evening out with friends. Unbeknownst to her, a sinister figure lurked in the shadows, his malevolent gaze fixed on the unsuspecting girl. As she strolled past the historic buildings and illuminated storefronts, the ambience of the coastal town took a sinister turn. The rhythmic tapping of her shoes on the cobblestone seemed to echo ominously in the quiet night. A chilling breeze rusted through the trees, carrying with an unsettling foreboding. Turning a corner into a narrow alley, Clara felt a sudden unease, as if the air itself has thickened. She paused, glancing nervously around, her sense heightened. The flickering streetlight illuminated the alley's entrance, revealing nothing but empty darkness beyond. "Clara," a voice whispered, sending a shiver down her spine. She spun around to discover a tall figure emerging from the shadows, his face obscured by the dim light. Panic surged through her veins as the man stepped forward, revealing a glint of a knife in his hand. Clara's heart raced, and a surge of adrenaline propelled her forward. Without thinking, she sprinted down the narrow alley, her breath quickening with every step. The echoing footstep of her pressure blended with her own, creating a haunting symptom of fear in the night. The labyrinth streets of Oskarshamn became a terrorous maze as Clara desperately sought refuge. Fear filled her
every move as they darted around corners. The cold wind beating at her cheeks. The echoes of her footsteps seemed to mock her, a reckless reminder that the danger was only steps behind. As they rounded another corner, Clara's eyes widened with relief as she spotted a warmly lit coffee ahead. As she rounded another corner, Clara's eyes widened with relief as she spotted a warmly lit coffee up ahead. The flickering neon sign cast a confronting glow and she dashed inside, praying for safety. The door chained behind her and she scanned the room for a place to hide. The few patrons looked up for their cozy corners, their curious gaze met by Clara's frantic eyes. A kind-faced barista, sensing the Agassiz, approached her. "Are you all right there? You look like you have seen a ghost." Breathless and trembling, Clara managed to convey the situation to the considerate barista. The coffee staff huddled together, compelling the best course of action. The barista, a woman named Anna, made a quick decision. "You stay there." "Well, we'll call the police," Anna assured, leading Clara to a secluded corner. "You're safe now." As the coffee staff delayed the emergency number, Clara's mid raised with a mix of fear and gratitude. The coffee, once having a coffee arsenal, became her temporary sanctuary. Anna, seeing Clara's vulnerability, offered her a comforting cup of tea as they awaited the arrivals of the police. Minutes passed like hours, each second heavy with the anticipation of the unknown. Clara clutched the warm teacup, her eyes fixed on the coffee entrance. The chime of the door announced the arrival of the police, and a wave of relief washed over her. Officer Lundgren, a stern but apathetic figure, listened instantly to Clara's harrowing encounter. He assured her that they would do everything to their power to aid the assailant and assure her safety. With determined nod, Officer Lundgren dispatched his team to patrol the area while he stayed with Clara at the cafe. As the night wore on, Clara's internal fear transformed into a deep-seated resolve. She refused to let the shadows of the town claim her. Officer Lundgren recognized her bravely guide her through the process of filling a report and shatter a plan for her protection. Clara, now under the watchful eye of the police, felt a renewed sense of security. However, as the clock ticked past midnight, a chilling revelation surfaced. Officer Lundgren's radio crackled with anxiety, and his expression darkened. The assailant had struck again, leaving behind a cryptic message painted on the brick wall in the heart of Oskarshamn. I will find you, Clara. You can't escape the shadows. Dread tightened its grip on Clara's heart as she realized that the danger was far from over. The town that once felt like a heaven now seemed a maze of treasure, with the malevolent force determined to play a sinister game. Officer Lundgren, fueled by a sense of duty, intensified the investigation. Clara, no longer a passive victim, joined force with the police. Her determination unwavering despite of the looming danger. Together they unraveled the threads of the town's history, seeking clues that would lead them to the evolution murderer. The labyrinth of Oskarshamn streets hid not only secrets but also the key of the assailant motives. As Clara delved into the town's past, she discovered a dark tale of betrayal and revenge that cast shadows over generations. The malevolent figure haunting her had roots deeply intertwined with the town's history. One stormy night, as rain lashed against the cobblestone streets, Clara and Officer Lundgren gathered in front of an abandoned mansion that stood as a silent witness to Oskarshamn's twisted past. The crumbling structure seemed to echo with the whispers of long-buried secrets. Guided by the clues they had painstakingly uncovered, they ventured into the heart of the decaying mansion. The air inside was thick with a palpable tension as they navigated the dilapidated halls, the creaking floorboards beating their feet, adding to the ominous atmosphere. In a forgotten chamber adorned with faded wallpapers of dusty furniture, Clara discovered a hidden compartment. Inside, a collection of old photographs and letters revealed the dark connection between the assistant and a tragic event that had stained Oskarshamn's history. The murderer, once an innocent victim, had become a vengeful phantom seeking retribution for a past injustice. Clara's heart sank as she realized the magnitude of the pain that flooded the assistant's twisted mansion. With the newfound knowledge Clara and Officer Lundgren confronted the murder, pleading for an end to the cycle of violence. The diplomated mansion became a battleground of emotions, the weight of history bearing down on the present. As the first light of dawn broke through the stormy clouds where revolution emerged, the assailant, tormented by the ghost of the past, chose to reliqueur the shadows that had consumed him. Clara, with a mix of empty and sorrow, witnessed the transformation of a vengeful figure into a fading spectre, disappearing into the echo of history. Oskarshamn, once plagued by the darkness that lurked in the alleys, emerged into a dawn. Clara is forever changed by the creepy and darkening alleys in town of Oskarshamn.
The Revenger. The Revenger is a person that feels a lot of anger because of his childhood. He was a very bullied child and he was seeking revenge for that. His parents passed away early and he was moving between foster families and was beaten in most of the households because he was angry about school. The reason because he was angry is because he got beaten. He has a lot of scars on the face and his left eye is totally shattered. When he turned 18, he moved from San Francisco to Everglade, and in Everglade he changed name to Eddie Finder from Charlie Steven. He got the name Finder because he's trying to find a solution to get vendetta. In Everglade he started to work as a police officer and was doing great. Until one day when he saw one of his former classmates named Stefan, one of the biggest bullies in the school, and when he saw him he was filled with so much anger, so he followed him with the car until they got to his home in Miami. It was a big mansion on the coast, and when he saw how good it was for his bullies, he was even angrier than before. He got so angry that he wanted to kill him, so he was seeking and looked for a window or a door that was open, and so it was. He walked in and looked for the kitchen, and when he found it, he saw Stepan was there, and he was cooking food and was cutting vegetables. He went outside again and knocked on the door, and then he was running inside, and when he saw Stefan walk to the door, he walked into the kitchen and took the knife, and when Stefan came back to the kitchen, he saw that the knife was gone and called the police immediately. And after a while, the Revenger was there in his police uniform, and Stefan ran to the door and opened it. And after a while, the Revenger said that it was nothing to worry about, and then the Revenger walked in and hid in the wardrobe. And on the night when Stefan was going to change clothes, there he was. The Revenger was standing there with the knife. Stefan's wife came home and saw something they would not have expected. She started to scream, and then she called 911 for the ambulance and the police. When she heard the sirens, she ran out to explain what she had seen. The medical staff started with CPR to maybe save Stefan's life, but he was dead. And after a while, the police started to ask questions. She was crying, and the police tried to comfort her. She asked what his name was, and he spoke. "My name is Eddie Finder." After some hours, he drew to his next victim, a guy who was a cleaner at the hospital. He felt persecuted, but when he looked around his neck, he didn't see anyone. When he was done for the day, he walked down to the basement. When he had dropped off his cleaning stuff, he heard some loud steps in the stairs and he looked out in the corridor, but he didn't saw anyone. When he stepped out from the cleaning room, it turned black, and he tried to turn on the light, but it was power failure in the hospital, and when the lights turned on again, the Revenger stood there with a big knife in the front of the cleaner. There was still blood on it from the victim before. When the cleaner was on the floor, he started to carve on his chest. He carved in, "The Revenger was here." This was the start of something that he would do on every victim. The next victim became a teacher they had at the time when he went through some hard time. He had clanged him down every day. It did make him uncertain, and he thought that he did badly every day, and all problems in his life were his fault. When this had been going for 6 months, he decided to not care about anything or anyone else. He started to punish the people who bullied him, and he started to go on boxing lessons, and he became a really strong person, both psychologically and physically. One day, when 5 of the bullying kids came to him and started to beat him up, he blocked every punch, and between the blocks he punched them back. It ended up in the hospital for the 5 bullying kids, and when he came to the school the day after, the teacher directly went with Charlie to the principal, and they kicked him out of school. This was the only time he got kicked out of a school, and at this time he was 15 years old. He moved from his last foster family, and that after that, because the dad in the family struck him up and the morning after Charlie was gone, and started to live inside a bus. He started to work as a receptionist in the police house and enjoyed it every day. So when he turned 18, he started to rent an apartment for the money that he saved from the work. He continued to work in the reception area during the time when he started to study at the police school. But he thought about the teacher every day, because he was the one to take him to the principal and then kicked him out of the school. After all the years of getting bullied without saying a word, and he did it self-defense, for the first time he got kicked out. The time had come when he started to find a good solution to killing of the teacher. He went with his car over to the other side of the country to spy on him. He saw him every day for a week, and he also saw when he got home from work and when his wife come home from work. There was 15 minutes between them coming home on Wednesday because the wife picked up their children from school. The other days they arrived home in the same car, so the Avenger got the day when he was going to do his actions. On the way home to the teacher on the Wednesday, he bought some fake blood. He took some of the blood from the nose and around the eyes so he wouldn't recognize him. Then he ran from the car to his house at the right time and knocked on the door in panic. When he opened the door, he asked what happened to the Revenger, and the Revenger answered, "They were chasing me." The teacher said that he could come inside. The Revenger went inside, and when the teacher locked the door, he took out the bloody knife and then he wiped off the blood from the nose and the eyes. The Revenger then asked, "Do you recognize me?" with a smile on his face. On the way to the police station in San Francisco, he hid the bloody knife under the seat, and after a while he was outside the police station. He walked in and looked for evidence that he may have left in the house, but the only thing he saw was a wall where they had written "The Revenger." They also had written all the Revenger's victims, but the only thing that made him think was that they had written "psychopath." The night went slowly, and he was awake every night from that time. The only thing that he thought about was the wall and the word. He started to wonder if he really was a psychopath. He couldn't go out if it wasn't for murder, and the victims were going up to 5 and then to 10. He promised himself that he wouldn't stop until all the classmates were dead. He got schizophrenia and looked over his back all the time, and when he fell asleep he dreamed about being killed. It became a horrible lifestyle, and he stopped eating. He almost killed half of the class, including their teacher, but then he got reminded that the principal is the one who kicked him out of school, and now it became a common place to kill. So he did like he always did, went home to his victims and tried to get inside. It was different stories every time. The next victim became the principal, and the Revenger did as usual. He started to spy on him for a week, and then he planned how to kill him. The big knife is the only thing he kills with. The knife that has taken 15 lives, and it will kill more humans. This would become the hardest victim to kill because he had made a career and have guards and a good security system. The Revenger was needed to overlist the guards and then find a window or something to get inside the house, then kill him. He started to think about the best way to create some distraction. Then he got the idea that he had when he killed the teacher. Fake blood and try to get in on the way, and then create other distractions. When he has come inside, he started to look for fake blood, but when he found the box, it was empty. He needed it today because at that time it had become an addiction, and so he started to cut his arm with a piece of glass and to get the blood he needed. Then he went with his car to the principal's house. He knocked the guard out with a rock that he threw. Then he went inside through the window. He quickly walked to the bedroom, and there he was. The principal was in his bed with a pillow over his head. The revenger went to him and pushed the pillow down with much force, and then stopped and walked to the door and locked. Then he said, "Do you remember me? I will be the last person to see you alive. This will be the end for you, because if you run, I'm going to kill you, and if you stay, still you will die," the revenger said. "Who are you?" said the revenger. "Don't you remember me?" the revenger said. "No, please let me go. I won't tell anyone about this," the principal said. "No, I can't let you go. If you don't trust me, it will hurt you bad," the revenger said. Then he walked to him toward the principal and took his knife and raised the arm.
The young guy. The story starts on a Monday, and Jake wakes up early in the morning, and his mom and dad have traveled to Spain for a trip. They worked a lot during last year, and they feel they need a trip. The trip will be for 2 weeks, and after that they will be at home. Jake don't go to the school now because it is summer break. He really likes the break, so he can be free and do whatever he wants. After the break, Jake went to start in 5th grade. Jake lives out in the forest and in a very old house that his parents purchased 20 years ago. The house is not so big, and the forest are close to the house. Jake can't do so many things at home, except play computer games and meet friends who live near. This morning, Jake starts with a small breakfast and orange juice. After that, he plays computer games. After 2 hours, a friend come to him and rang the doorbell. The friend wondered if they could take the bike to the supermarket and eat food, drinks, and have a lot of snacks. They went to the supermarket and had a good time. The time went really fast, and suddenly the time is 9 p.m. and the sun going down, and outside it is very black. Yeah, Jake's friend must leave, and Jake went home to his house. When Jake come back to the house, it is dark outside and he cannot see so much because there are no lights around the house and the dark forest is close to the house. At 10:30 p.m. Jake's parents call him and they ask, "How is it going, Jake?" Jake answered, "It is alright." During the conversation, Jake took it really nice to be alone, and he asked his parents why they can't be away more from him and the house more often. Jake's parents say that he's not old, and if something happens, it's not so fun for him. Jake doesn't understand what they mean, and he's sure that nothing will happen to him. When he had been at home by himself, nothing had ever happened, and he'd never be afraid. When Jake has ended the call, he recognizes it has started to rain and started to blow a lot. The trees sway in the wind, and it's not a good weather to be outside. Jake is happy to be in the house. Now it's time to sleep for Jake, and after the toilet and brushing his teeth, he went to bed. Jake's room is on the upper floor. He falls asleep very fast because he's very tired after the bike to the supermarket and all the food and drinks. After a little time of sleep, Jake suddenly wakes up to a strange sound from down the floor in the house. Jake gets very scared and he doesn't know what to do. For a couple of minutes, Jake is still in the bed. After a little time, he hears the same sound again. But now comes the sound from the same floor as Jake is. Jake starts to shiver and now he is very nervous. He starts to run to the toilet, and there he looks the door. The mysterious sound continues and Jake doesn't know what to do. After around an hour, the sound suddenly stops. Jake unlocks the toilet door and sneaks back to his room and jumps into the bed. Next day, he cannot stop thinking of what he heard. Jake wonders if it was a dream or not. Did he really hear the strange sound, he thinks. Jake thinks a lot of the sounds, but he doesn't want to think about it too much because he gets nervous then. Today go by fast for Jake. He meets his friend and they hang out at his home a lot during the day. They were playing basketball and suddenly Jake's mother called him. She asked how it's going for him, and he is not sure if he's going to say anything about the sounds he had heard last night. He decided to tell his mother what had happened at home. First, there is a long silence. Then Jake's mother starts to laugh. Mother says to Jake that is not possible, and Jake don't think so. When they had talked for about 5 minutes, Jake can't hear Mother any longer. Jake now hear a high roaring sound. Jake get very nervous and he look down in the ground in a few minutes, and at the same time he looks up and look around, and he sees a lot of shadows around. A few minutes later he even sees a few characters who are dressed in black and standing a little further away from Jake and looking at him. He gets very nervous and doesn't really know what to do. He wonders if he's connected to him what happened last night when he heard the strange sounds. Jake look down again, and a few seconds later he looks up again, and then the shadows are near him, and the persons are also near him. Jake think many things, and he's in his head. He start crying and get panic and don't know what he can do. Jake looks down on the ground again, and now he's crying very much. And after a few seconds he looks up again, and now he decides to talk with the person. But then the shadows and the person are not there. Jake takes a long breath and think much about that. He goes quickly away from the place and run home very fast. When Jake is home, he takes up the phone and calls his mother and say what had happened. His mother doesn't believe him first, but after a little time she understands what had happened and say, "I can't come home now, Jake. You have no way to come home. We will be home around 1 week, but I can call grandmother so he can come to help you." 2 hours later, grandmother is coming home and Jake and talk with her. Jake is very sad and afraid, but it feels much better when grandmother is around him and in the house. Jake and the grandmother eat together watching a movie. When the movie is finished, the time is around 11 p.m. and it's time for sleep. The grandmother say goodbye to Jake and leave the house. Jake play computer games for a while before he sleep. When Jake have finished the computer games, he go to the bed and try to sleep. He cannot sleep because he think all the time about the stranger sounds and the shadows and the person he had seen earlier this day. Jake wakes up of a sound that he heard before. It is very dark outside and windy. The time is 2 p.m. Jake say to himself, "Not again, please." Jake is afraid, and around a few minutes later he heard many sounds again from the down floor. He runs fast to the toilet and locked the door. Now he had his hand in the face. Jake hears footsteps coming up from the stairs. Now he is very scared and sit quietly on the bathroom floor and listen. At the same time, he pick up his phone and write to his friend that he need to help now. Jake's friend takes the bag quickly, but Jake has forgotten to turn off the sound on the phone, so the people outside the toilet hear the sound from Jake's phone. Now Jake hears the footsteps coming closer and closer to the toilet. Suddenly, there is a silence for a few seconds, but the people start knocking on the door and screaming outside the toilet. A voice is screaming, "Open the door now!" Jake is now in panic and doesn't know what to do. He sits complete still and shakes. Then he remembers that there is a window in the bathroom. There he can't out. He quickly opens the window and climb out and jump. He hit the ground hard, but nothing is broken. He looks up on the bathroom window and see the shadows of people looking at him. Jake run to the garage and take his bike and go away from the house. At the same time, he called the police and screams, "Help! Help! There are strange people in my house." The police say, "Calm down, where are you now?" Jake explained that he is walking to the town and the police station. 10 minutes later, Jake is at the entrance of the police station, and in the station he meets a police officer. The police officer takes Jake to a room, and the police officer starts to question Jake about what had happened. Jake explained in the details what had happened to the police officer. He nodded his head and said to Jake, "You're not alone. Many people had called the police about this." The officer explained that the police are hunting a gang that do frighten people and make Burnley in their house. As they speak, another police officer come into the room and say, "We're lucky. We had now catch the gang and Jake's house." Jakes look up and think this is real. The police officer said to Jake, "Now everything is over, and you can go home and sleep." Jake feels very happy and calls his mother directly and tell the story. After that, Jake went to the house and get to bed and sleep very well for the whole night.
The Stalker in Milton Keynes. Milton Keynes is a small town outside London where everyone is happy, but there is one problem. A lot of murder happened in the town recently, and that's why Milton Keynes is also known as Murder Keynes. The town doesn't know who it is and why it keeps happening. Milton Keynes has a sign when entering the town and it says, "Have you done something bad in the past, you will get punished." The next day, a man cycling to his job. The man's name is Aiden, who is working at the EC Hotel Milton Keynes. He has been working there for 9 years, and this year is his 10th year working for EC Hotel Milton Keynes. On his spare time, he plays video games with his friends. Aiden also plays football and now playing for Milton Keynes Don FC.
and the position he has is center back. The next day, when Aiden was walking to his job, he felt someone is watching him for a very long time. But when Aiden is looking back, he saw nothing. After that, he just forget what happened. Later that day, Aiden had the same feeling he had in the morning. He looked around and didn't see anyone. It was 9:30 p.m. and Aiden had just ended his shift. On the walk, Aiden heard someone walking right behind him. Aiden looked back and saw nothing, just what he saw when passing it just for a moment ago. When Aiden came home, he made some food and started his PC and started playing with his friends. The clock was around 11 p.m. and Aiden had heard something like a cat dragging the clothes against the floor. Aiden took off his headset, walked around the house and didn't see anything. When he came back to his PC, he saw something in the window, like someone was looking into the room, but then he just thought it was a cat. But Steve walked up to the window and looked out, and then dried the curtains over the window, and then ended his session with his friends and went to sleep. Aiden had just got off bed and started walking into the kitchen and started the coffee machine, and the clock was 6 a.m. when he had finished his sandwich. On the walk to his job, it was dark as hell and -5 degrees. Aiden is freezing, but he only has 10 minutes walk. When Aiden got to his hotel Milton Keynes, Aiden walked directly to the changing room and changed to his worker clothes, a suit in black and a black tie. Under lunchtime, Aiden got a call from his soccer team that the match has changed today, and Aiden was ready. The match was against Gillingham. The last match against them did not go well. Milton Keynes FC lost, and a fight started too. And today Milton Keynes FC will change that and win the match. The time was 1:30 p.m. and a customer came in and had booked a room. When he saw the face, he felt he had seen it before and asked, "Have we met before?" asked Aiden. I don't think so," said the customer. "Oh, okay, sorry for asking anyways," said Aiden. "It's fine," said the customer. When Aiden handed the key card to the customer and Aiden started thinking of the man and felt something is wrong. Like Aiden had met him before and spoken with him, Aiden got a little nervous that something would happen soon, with him or someone else in the town. When the clock was closing in to 3 p.m, Aiden asked if he could end his shift earlier, because he had a soccer game, and the boss said yes. The match started at 6 p.m. When Aiden walked home, he meets a man who looked like the man he meets earlier in the day, but didn't think about it much. When Aiden was home, he made some food and packed his soccer gear. When Aiden was done home, Aiden took his bike and on the way to the match. Aiden got a newspaper in the face and Aiden was quick on the brake. I looked at the newspaper. It stood, "You're getting followed by me." Aiden shook his head and looked at the newspaper again, and the next time it stood, "Milton Keynes FC having a match against Gillingham." When Aiden saw that, he got a little scared. When Aiden got to the match, everything was normal. He got to the changing room and spoke with his team. When it was halftime, the teams headed back to the changing room and spoke what they should do next half. When Aiden was heading out to the pitch, he saw someone is hiding in the forest next to the pitch, and Aiden looked for a moment and then stopped looking at the person he saw and so focused on the match he played. He played the whole match and scored 1 goal. Milton Keynes FC won the game with 1-0. After the match, the team cheered in the changing room and was very happy to win against Gillingham. Aiden woke up in the middle of the night that something is banging on his door. Aiden sneaked up to his door and looked through the loophole and saw the same man he checked in a few days ago. Aiden got very scared. Aiden felt something is going to happen with him, and Aiden didn't open the door and just let him bang the door how much he wanted. Aiden stayed the rest of the night up, thinking how he could do to stop the man following him. Aiden got an idea, and it was that Aiden should not think of the man and let him do what he wants, because in the end he will think it are getting boring, and Aiden named him the Stalker. Because Aiden felt like someone is stalking him, Aiden covered his window and left the one window uncovered, and in the room that's where he plays video games and sleeps. It was around 7 a.m. and Aiden got a call from his boss to say that he got sick from the soccer game yesterday, but Aiden was not sick. He just said that he to be home and tried to get the stalker attention. Aiden started his PC and bought some security cameras. Aiden went out to get some free air, and the same moment the stalker just passed Aiden's house, and that moment Aiden looked angry at the stalker, and the stalker looked angry back, then just disappeared between the houses. Aiden went in again and went to play video games for a bit. When Aiden had been playing for a bit, he looked out and saw the stalker in the window, and Aiden thought it was little funny and waved to him and smiled. The stalker got angry and just disappeared from the window. The next morning, Aiden read the newspaper. On the front it says 2 new bodies found. The same time he read the text aloud. A chair in front of me fell and Aiden jumped off his chair and got a little scared. Aiden took the chair and put it back. Then Aiden watched some TV and looked at the news to get more information about the 2 new bodies they found. The police said that they got some identity who he can be. They showed a picture of the man, and it was kinda like the man Aiden got problem with. But Aiden didn't want to tell the police, he wanted to get the stalker by himself. It's been 1 week since Aiden saw nothing from the stalker. Aiden was at work and it has been a normal day so far. When Aiden heard something from the kitchen, he went to see what it was for sound, and Aiden saw nothing had fallen or a window was broken. When Aiden went to his co-workers, the lights just went out and it was pitch black where they were, and when the lights went on again, Aiden was gone. The co-workers didn't hear anything. Aiden got the bag over his head. When the stalker took the bag off, Aiden was tied up in a chair. His legs and hands were stuck, and saw the stalker for the first time properly and asked, "Why are you following me?" The stalker didn't answer. I looked in his bag. I took up some tools and placed them in front of Aiden. Aiden's co-workers have started looking for him. Aiden's co-workers was looking for Aiden everywhere and even called the cops, and the cops looked how the lights got out and where exactly Aiden stood and tried to make up the scene. The co-workers went to Aiden's house and looked there, and when they were there, a chair fell over and got scared. They went into his bedroom and looked there, and they heard the same noise Aiden did, like a cat dragging a claws against the floor. Back to Aiden. Aiden was very scared and looked at the stalker every second. Aiden asked the same question the whole time. The stalker got very angry and took his knife and cut Aiden's arm. And Aiden screamed so loud the stalker put his hand over his mouth and flipped the chair over. Aiden wanted to know what he wanted, but still got no answer. The stalker took the chair and placed it by the wall. Aiden looked around and tried to see an escape road, but didn't see anyone. The stalker finally said a word to Aiden. "I want you to kill someone for me." "No, I will not do that for you," screamed Aiden. "Yes, you will, after some time." "Wait, what do you mean by that?" asked Aiden. The stalker left the room. The stalker went out and went to the barn on the garden. He went in and looked for the weapon he's going to use on Aiden to get and kill the person he wants. The stalker opened a box. "There she is," said the stalker. He took up his chainsaw and went inside the house. The stalker started a chainsaw and went into the room where Aiden was sitting. And then he screamed loud as he could, but his work got blocked by the chainsaw sound. "Let's see if she wants to help me now," said the stalker. "I don't kill people like you," screamed Aiden.
The Whispering Woods. As the sun rises, 4 friends set out for a camping trip, turning eerie when Joe suggests exploring a creepy place he found online. The forest hides satanic rituals, strange whispers, and spiritual force that force the group to try to escape. Trapped in the haunted woods, escape seems to be impossible. Slowly, they realize that the nightmare is far from over. We have just finished packing our brand new camping bag that we bought just for this trip. The trip that me and my 3 other friends Josh, Cole and Jones have planned for a long time. This upcoming experience is going to be a lifetime memory. No one of us has ever really done this before, and we are already 19 years old, so it is exciting. I am the one driving the van that we rented for 3 days. We're using it to get to the parking area near the hiking trail. Josh, who has been my friend since before, is sitting next to me. Cole and Jones are Josh's friends, and this is the first time I'm meeting them. Cole seems to be nice and pleasant, but for some reason I feel like there is something special about Josh. He has rarely engaged in any conversation with me since we first met this morning. I don't know if I fully understand why, so I am just going to wait for him to say anything to me, and I don't want to pressure him into talking to me. While heading to our hiking destination, Josh stumbles upon a Facebook page. It is about mysterious and creepy places. He believes it will be more exciting and interesting to visit locations that are in that Facebook page. I don't think it is a promising idea, because we have planned this trip a long time ago. I do not like Josh's suggestion, but hearing him beg us to go there makes me feel like we have to go. I mean, how bad could it be? I am thinking, wouldn't it be fun to try something new, even though I have not even hiked a normal hike before? I put the new location on the GPS, preparing myself for changing the car's direction, but it is just around the corner. As we get closer to the forest entrance, it starts to feel a bit unsettling. What seemed like an exciting idea first now feels a little scary, like an adventure that we are not sure about. Cole says that he doesn't want to go in there. Are you scared? Josh says. Immediately, Cole seems to be not scared at all. Let's start the hike, Cole said. After some walking with no speaking, it feels awkward. I feel how quiet the forest really is. It is a bit spooky to enter such a large forest with tall trees that do not make a single sound. There is almost no traces, just a small one that soon will be gone due to nature. It is almost like we are the first people to be here. We decide to eat something quick before heading further into the dark, apparently haunted forest. I pack up the picnic blankets and we all sit down in a small circle. The forest comes alive with mysterious sounds as we unwrap our sandwiches. I would not say it is scary sounds, but it is more fascinating. I might just say this because it's still light outside, but right now it is a bit cozy. While we're eating, Jones suddenly stops eating and looks confused. He asks, "Did anyone hear that?" We all stop eating and listen while scanning the surrounding, but all we can hear is the loud silence and see nothing but trees. Cole says it's probably just an animal. As we keep walking, the path gets narrower, the trees get denser, and the daylight starts fading away bit by bit. I notice the mud in the ground is shifting rapidly. It is getting colder, even chillier, and darker. I can feel that things are starting to change. We should put up a tent, Cole says. No, let's explore the forest while it's still light outside, Josh answers. As usual, yes, Josh gets his suggestion granted. We venture deeper into the woods. The rustling of the leaves under our boots is the only thing that is breaking the eerie silence. Now when I look down, I see that the path is now barely noticeable, which challenges our hiking. I glance at Josh, seeing him searching for the map in his phone. He looks both shocked and a bit worried. I said, "What's the matter, Josh?" We might be lost," he admits. We look at each other, not knowing what to say. Panic sets in as we are realizing that the situation that we are in, the once exciting adventure, is now turning into a nightmare. The forest that we were once welcoming and full of mysterious sounds now seems to be even more scary as the darkness closes in. I look around, trying to find familiar landmarks, but everything looks unfamiliar. The high dense trees block out the light from the moon, so it's completely dark right now. I see Jones walking away from us, thinking he needs some time to melt the information that we just got. Some time passing by, we are still in the same place as before, talking about how we're going to get out of here.
"Help me!" Josh shouted as he is running towards us. "There is something in the woods over there," he says while pointing to the direction that he came from. Josh looks unbothered, which is weird after hearing what Josh just said. "Don't worry, it is probably just an animal," he answers. "No," Jones replies. "I felt something in my back and heard an eerie whisper," he continues. "I think it's time to leave now," I say. The hike back is going to be tough with the darkness, and it's even more challenging because of those eerie whispers in the woods that Jones described. As we press on, the hike seems to be not that difficult, but suddenly we come across an ancient-looking and ruined pallets hidden among the trees, moss-covered stones surrounding a round span of cable, and strange symbols are etched into the dark wood. The air becomes charged with an eerie energy, and chill runs down my spine. I go to explore the trees with red symbols carved into the trees. As I get closer, the air thickens with an unsettling energy as we get even closer. The red symbols look like some kind of satanic ritual. It glows faintly in the darkness, making the dark place shine up a bit. Josh doesn't seem to be bothered. He suggests we should go down the remains of the mysterious pallets. "No, we shouldn't," I say, thinking it's a really bad idea. I don't want us to get in another bad situation. We just got out of this forest. Let's go. "Yes, we should," they replies. We discuss what to do next. I glance at Josh and Cole, who are behind Josh, almost hiding. The boat seems to want to go down there, so I have no choice but to follow them. Looking at the walls, I see moss for the most part, but also weird lines etched into the stones. I beg Josh to search what the places are in his phone, even though he is the only one who has battery left. It seems like we are in an old satanic ritual spot where many people have been killed, and their souls are still here, whispering people's names, he says. We look at each other, not knowing how to react. It must be some kind of old story, I think for myself. Suddenly, out of nowhere, we hear a loud voice deep in the dark woods. We immediately start to run, not knowing where to go. We all split up and run in different locations. I hear Cole's screaming for help far away behind me. Fear grows inside, realizing that the forest holds more than just ancient ruins. While trying to escape, the once familiar path becomes like an endless maze. The darkness plays tricks in my mind, and the unsettling whisper seems to guide me even deeper into the heart of the haunted woods. I found a place with fewer trees, kind of like where the start of the spooky forest were. I think I made it. My heart is still racing, but it's slowly going down. I rest by a tree, checking out the surroundings that look like where we entered the creepy forest. I stand up once again and continue searching for the way out. Suddenly, I come across Cole's hat on the ground, stained with blood. My heart immediately starts racing at full speed again. I start running in random direction, pushing myself to the fastest speed I've ever run in my life before. Eventually, I find some kind of place I can hide in. I discover an old stone and quickly hide behind it. As I look around, I realize it is the same place where the satanic rituals were. My body drops to the ground, feeling extremely cold and can't move. The unsettling whispers persist, hearing them as I lay on the ground. From thinking it was over to now realizing that the nightmare is far from over. The whispering woods lived up to their name. I am trapped alone in the chilly embrace of the haunted forest and cannot get out.
She has blood all over his face, and her eyes are being turned inside out. "It's a demon!" shout Adam. They runs up again and hide in the toilet. They hear something going up on the stairs. They decide to break the window in the toilet and jumps out of the window and runs towards the car. They see a demon coming behind them.
Lisa suddenly slips in a muddy puddle. The demon feels at Lisa and bites her towards. Adam and Isaac have gotten in the car and are driving away. Lisa remains in the mud puddle with blood on her face, but the children continues to drive. They assume that Lisa was dead. They continues to driving, but on the road they see a white lady, so they drive at the side and ends up in the ditch. Everything is black.
It was September 1997. Me and my family had just moved into our new house. The house was bigger than our old and I had more space to explore, which I liked. In the beginning I liked it pretty much. My mom worked often late nights, so I was used to have the whole house for myself. My dad is dead since a long time ago. Mom told me that he was killed by a monster, but I have never believed her and always thought that she just didn't want me to think about it. But as a small kid, you do think a lot, and especially if it is about your family members. My dad was a superhero. He did always have my back, even when I didn't deserve it. He quit his job to care for me when my mom worked late. As you hear, he was always there for me, and still is, just not physically there. Nowadays, when mom works late, she leaves me all by myself. She used to say that I am big enough to fend myself. Mom is right. But it isn't constantly that fun to be left alone in the biggest house I have ever seen. When it gets dark, I always get the feeling of someone watching me. I like to think that it is Dad who comes to visit me, but since we moved, it doesn't feel like him anymore. It feels like someone else, and I hate it. Mom says that I'm going crazy. She doesn't even believe in ghosts or anything like that. But I can feel someone, and I know that this ghost or whatever it is isn't as nice as Dad used to be. When most kids get scared, they usually scream at their mom. What should I do? Scream to myself or just scream because someone else does that? No, I need him. I need to be quiet. If someone is hiding in a house, he won't hear me. I often think of deep breath when I am scared. It helps a lot. Sometimes I try to convince myself that I am only paranoid, nothing to worry about or call my mom for. I have still not told you why I am like this, or why I think someone is hiding in a house. But it all started 8th of September 1997, some month before we moved and 5 days after my 9th birthday. Mom had just gone to her job and I was, as usually, alone. It was misty and cold outside. I called my friend to ask if he wanted to come over and play. At first he didn't answer, but later he called me back. We do always speak at FaceTime, much funny to both see each other and talk. Me and my friend talked for a while, when his father talked about if he should let us play the day or not. I went to the kitchen to grab a cup of tea and had the camera directed to our balcony. At the same time as I poured the water into my cup, my friend started to scream, "There is someone on the balcony, you need to hide." I just answered him that Mom isn't home this early, so nobody was outside. My friend said okay and went back to whatever he did before he started to scream. I just ignored him, something I will regret. 2 seconds after we stopped talking, I heard something crash outside. I went to look if it was our cat Pelle that wanted to come in. I never saw anything, but the crash was never from a cat because it was footsteps on the balcony. Now you think I'm crazy, but I promise you that I saw real footsteps. My hands started to shake. I could barely control them. I went back to the kitchen to pick up my phone and call Mom, but my phone wasn't where I left it before. Did I forget where I left it last time, or had someone picked up it? With shaking legs, I went to the bedroom, the only room I felt completely safe in. Once again, I heard something, but this time it came from the basement. I took one of our flashlights and rushed down the stairs as fast as I could. My hands started to shake even faster than before, and I had never been that scared in my whole life. I walked along the empty and dark corridor. It felt like someone watched me. I had full focus forward and accidentally tripped over a pile of dusty old clouds. I dropped my flashlight and it broke into 1,000 pieces. Now I stood in the middle of the basement with no light, and I barely couldn't see my own hands. I knew that somewhere in this long corridor would be a switch, so I held my hand against the wall to see if I could feel it somewhere. In the same second as I found the switch and turned all lights on, I heard someone rush forward the stairs. I went after, but when I came up, someone had turned all lights off. I started to get calm again. I just wanted to see whoever the person was. I went to look for a new flashlight and found one. That one wasn't as good as the other one, but I could see more with it than without it. I turned around and walked from the room to room. When I came back to the room where everything started, the kitchen, I saw that the balcony door once again stood open. I directed the flashlight towards the forest and I could barely believe my own eyes. Right in front of me, a couple of meters away, a long, thin and black-clad man with a mask that covered his face. Is that the man who broke into my house? The man that I didn't feel friendly? Even if he stood meters away from me, I could feel how his eyes stared right into my soul. I just couldn't stop looking, and now you all think that the man just had gone astray, but he came back and still does. He only shows himself when I am alone and it is completely quiet. And my mother says that I am going crazy. When I told my mom about the man, she said that I am going crazy and that I am paranoid. She also tell me that a person is paranoid when the person hears something or sees something nobody else sees. But I think she's wrong. The real man is real. He isn't kind.
The midnight came. 5 days after the event, the cops on it looked around the house to see if everything was okay. What they found was a bunch of tables and chairs that had been broken except for one. At this particular table, a teenager sat on a rocking chair, but something wasn't right. He wasn't moving and still the chair was swinging. The teenager looked up at the officers without hesitation. The officer knew what had to be done. This boy has to go to a hospital. Day 1, Wednesday. The alarm clock started to ring. He opened his eyes and wasn't excited for school. His mom came in the room and yelled, "David, wake up!" because he's trying to fall asleep again. However, David needed to get ready for school or he would get late. Every morning he meets up his best friends, Ryan and Ben. Ryan lived closer to David than Ben, but they were all very close. On the way to school, they talk about games, cars, and could talk about it all day. Little did they know that they were in the school hallway and heard the bell ring. It was time for the first lesson, math. All the 3 boys, they were in the same classroom, but they sat far away from each other, because otherwise they disturbed the class. Ben always wanted to sleep when the teenagers started to talk. He yawned, got his arms on the desk, and closed his eyes. Ben was the guy that didn't really care about school. Not like Ryan and David. The girl he sat next to woke him up to pay attention. Ben looked at her with a tired expression, but annoyed at the same time. "Hi, I'm trying to follow." The girl didn't let him finish his sentence. She asked him if he had heard about the midnight game. "What? Midnight game?" Ben asked with a confused look. She was about to tell Ben what she knew, but the teenagers shouted at them to listen. Both of them immediately got quiet. even though that game couldn't leave Ben's mind. The school day went on as usual. At the end of the school, they all three walked home together like they always did. David and Ryan asked him why he was so quiet all the way home. Ben said that it was nothing but that he will see them tomorrow. When Ben was home, he tried to find out what the midnight game was all about. He found too much about the game, all the rules, what it all meant, and the risk that was on the game. The things you need to have: one paper for each person who will play. One paper needs to have your whole name on it and a drop of your own blood. One candle for each person and a lighter to light the candle. Salt was very important for this game too. All you had to do in the midnight game was to place the paper with your full name and blood on it in front of a wood door. Light the candle and knock on the door 22 times. It must be before the clock goes on 12 a.m. Blow out the candle and open the door to welcome the midnight man in your home. You need to light the candle again and go slowly around the house to 3:33 a.m. If the candle goes out, it means that the midnight man is close, and you need to light the candle again before 10 seconds. If you didn't make it, you must do a circle of salt before it's too late. The midnight game is one of the most dangerous games in the world. Once you have played the game, it will be no turning back, and the midnight man will follow you until the day you die, like a demon in the shadows. Ben didn't believe that anything bad would happen to him, so he wanted to play the game even though David, Ryan and his own life was at risk. Day 2, Thursday. Somehow the next day Ben got excited for the game. He hasn't asked the boys yet. Ben thought he would ask them on the way to school. When they all met up, Ben explained to David and Ryan about the game he found out. Ryan didn't believe that anything bad would happen to them, even though David thought for a second that it could be a bad idea. I mean, what if it's all true and that we would get hurt? David asked them both with a worried look. Oh, come on, it will be fine. Ryan replied with a desperate look. The school bell rang and it was time for their lesson. All the boys were excited for the midnight game, except for David. Felt like his thoughts of the midnight man chasing for him his whole life. That scary thought couldn't leave his mind. He wanted to stop thinking that way, but everybody in school was talking about it. Some of the people even lied and told everybody their experience. How insane that everything feels real and that everyone in school should try it. David got more scared during the school day. Even thought it were no turning back. If he told Ben and Ryan that he didn't want to play, they would think that David is a coward and believe in demons, which he wasn't. They all have played games before, but no horror games in real life. However, when the school day was over, they all went home as usual. They were going to meet up with Ben in his house at 11 o'clock. Everyone decided to play the game at Ben's because he had the biggest house in the neighborhood. His parents were on a work trip, so they weren't home for a while. David and Ryan met up before and walked to Ben's home together. David was very quiet. Anyone could tell on the look on his face that he felt nervous. Ryan tried to calm him down, told him that it was all just a game and that he needed to relax. David gave him a fast smile and went back to the silence again. After a long, quiet walk, they finally were at Ben's front door. He welcomed them happily into his home. They helped each other with all the things they needed to have for the game. 23:56 was the time for the real game to start. David keeps biting his nails and shaking and taking deep breath. Ryan felt really bad for how David was acting and asked Ben if they could do something else. Suddenly Ben lost it and said to both Ryan and David with a loud voice, "What are you talking about? We have all agreed to this. We have prepared everything and it's almost midnight. I thought we all wanted this. It's now or never." Ben took the papers with their full name on them and handed it over to them so they could get a little bit of their blood on it. Ryan and David looked at each other and felt like they didn't have a choice. They sat down and did as they were told. Went to the wood door and placed the papers in front of it. Lighted the candles. Knocked on the door 22 times. Blew out the candles. Opened the door to welcome the Midnight Man to their home. Closed the door. Lighted the candles again. They lastly took one candle each. Spread each other out to see if they would be chasing by the Midnight Man. The whole house was dark. They couldn't see a thing except for the light in their hands. One of the big rules was to have no lamps in the whole house. David's heart couldn't stop beating faster and faster, turning around and looked in every direction when he walked. It was the same with Ryan. He also felt like something was around them. Ben, on the other hand, felt like the game was ridiculous. Started to get tired and wished to go up to his room for a nap. However, they all continued to walk around the house. The weird thing was that they didn't see each other at all, not any light except their own. It didn't happen until 2:38. When Ben's candle went out, he barely walked in panic. He took out the lighter in his pocket to light the candle. In some strange way, the lighter didn't work. A voice was calling his name slowly. Ben, Ben, Ben. With his eyes and mouth wide open, he tried to stand up and had to get the salt, which was downstairs in the kitchen. As he ran down the stairs, still hearing his name, then he suddenly fell and let out the scream, but quickly got up. David and Ryan heard and followed the scream. They both took down the candles and ran to find a lamp open in the kitchen. As they led their way to find the most insane thing that they have ever seen, both of them couldn't believe their eyes. What they found was Ben flying off the floor, with his hands on the neck like he was being shocked. His whole face was purple, and his eyes was only white. They both had no idea what to do in that moment, looking all scared with their body whole frozen. "We have to do something, he's shocking." That's what Ryan told David, and at that moment, they both went up to him, took his leg and begged him to wake up. It wasn't working, so David took the salt he saw on the table and put right in Ben's eyes. It worked, and he fell down hard on his back. Ben rubbed his eyes to get the salt out. Ryan and David were really terrified, asking him along the lines of, "What happened? Are you okay?" Ben replied, just saying that he was fine and that they all needed to go home. He pushed David and Ryan out of the house really angrily. They were both really confused and really scared about the experience that happened. The way home they discussed, but didn't come up with anything that could be a logic explanation for the incident. Parents never knew what they were up to. They were sneaking in and out of the house to not let them know. Both David and Ryan ended up not getting any hour of sleep that night. Day 3, Friday. It was school the next day. However, they started late, so they weren't in a rush. Like always, they meet up so they could go to school together. Something was different that day. Ben wasn't coming out of his house. Usually they would see him coming towards them on the round, but they didn't see him. Even though every time David was sick and wasn't coming to school, he would always write to them in first hand, so they would know. David and Ryan were waiting for him. They even called and messaged him but got no answer. It had been 20 minutes. If they didn't go, then they would be late for school. Ryan and David had to continue their way to school. They thought that they maybe would see him later. The school bell rang and they had to get to class. In the first lesson they were in different groups, but David and Ben were in the same group. In the lesson, David couldn't focus because he was so worried about Ben, although he tried to confuse himself that Ben is fine and that he only were overthinking it all. It was lunchtime and Ben hadn't come to school yet. They kept on calling him over and over, but got nothing. Even the teachers asked about Ben, and they couldn't give them an answer. David and Ryan had the last lesson, and after school they want to figure out where Ben were all day. After a while school ended and David received an anonymous phone call. Should I answer? Yes, it could be Ben. David answered and put it on speaker. They heard a strange voice. It sounded like someone asking for help. Who is it? Your worst nightmare. What? Help, help. Ben, is that you? Come and find out. Then the call broke. David and Ryan got terrified, trying to figure out what they just have heard. Was it really Ben on the phone? Both of them wanted to find out. After the school day were over, they went to Ben's house to see if they could find something that could help them find him, or wish that they would find him somewhere in his home. When they arrived, the front door was wide open. Slowly they were coming in the house. Suddenly, when both of them were inside, the door slammed closed. They looked at each other. You saw that too, right? David asked to see if he wasn't crazy. Yeah, that's weird. They took out their phones to put on the flashlight so they could see. The whole house was a big mess. Broken tables, glass everywhere. All the windows were covered. It was not a little light in the house. They accidentally went on different ways and lost each other in the darkness. Both of them thought that the other one was behind them, but they later found out that they were walking alone. They also tried to scream to find each other but did not succeed, so they continued to walk separately. David could feel that he was playing the midnight game all over again. Ryan thought the same. Suddenly David felt a hand on his shoulder, in horror to find no one standing behind him. Looking back again to continue his way, when his phone drops out of his hand, and he bent his knees to pick it up, something or someone pushed him to fall down on his back. Trying to stand up again when he felt a strong grip of a hand around his neck, shocking him. No air come in his lungs. To his relief, Ryan came just in time and the mystery strong hand grip let go of him. David, what happened? Both of them were in a big shock. We need to get out of here, right now. Ryan helped David all the way home. It was already dark outside. However, the street light was on and they felt safer out of the house, even though both of them knew that they had to go back the next day. Their parents was wondering where they were and got worried. David had got red around his whole neck. His mom and dad were stunned and mad. Tell us now what happened. If he told them what really happened, they would never believe him. David had to come up with a lie. It's nothing, I don't know what happened really. That wasn't exactly a lie, he still didn't know. However, his parents didn't take it and was about to call the police. David stopped them and took the phone. No, wait, me and the boys was just playing. It was an accident and I'm fine. They finally relaxed and told him that if it happened again, they would call the police on them. David nodded and went to his room for some sleep, turned off the light on his desk beside the bed, closing his eyes when he heard someone or something screaming his name slowly. David, David, David. He stood up, looking around to find a face in the shadows behind his door, giving him a big smirk while saying, I will always be with you. David's eyes got wide open. His hands were shaking and felt that he was getting pale. The shadows was coming closer and closer to him. He managed to turn the light on before it could get to him. After that he could breathe normally again, but were still terrified for what could have happened next. David left the light open the whole night, even though when he didn't get a blink of sleep. When he stayed up all night was when he realized that he forgot his phone in Ben's house. The same happened to Ryan. Ryan was in the bathroom, brushing his teeth and got ready for sleep. When the lights turned off, when he watched on his way to turn the light back on, he heard his name. Ryan, Ryan, Ryan. Seeing a creepy face in the shadows, giving him a smirking look, and said to him, I'm here for you. Feeling his whole body shaking and was about to faint, but managed to turn around after seeing the shadows coming closer to him. When he had his back turned, he felt a big burn on his back. The lights were turned on again and the shadows was gone. Ryan went back to his bed and slept with his lamp open all night. Day 4, Saturday. It was no school the next day and they wanted to find Ben somehow on the weekend. Ryan was calling and messaged David constantly. No answer because the phone was left at Ben's. Something Ryan didn't know, so he was so scared if something happened to David too. Ryan rushed to David's house. When David's mom opened the door, he was out of breath because he ran all the way. Are you feeling okay, Ryan? Ryan managed to talk. Yeah, is David home? She told him that David were upstairs and gave him a welcome to come in. Ryan rushed to David's room and slapped him on the head. Why didn't you answer the phone? Because I dropped it at Ben's house. Let me go back to sleep. Ryan took out his blanket and told him that they needed to find something that could help them find Ben. David knew that it was no ending in this stupid game. On their way to the house, they told each other what they had seen and heard. When they were in front of Ben's house again, the front door had been wide open since yesterday. They had no plan at all and had no idea what to do. At the end, they only decided to uncover all the windows and try to go around the house together this time. Ryan and David didn't find anything, only that the house was a hot mess. However, they found David's phone, but it was all broken. They found something that they couldn't explain when they were in Ben's room. His room has always been so clean, had everything in order. Nothing was clean or in order anymore. The room was in total darkness with candles in a big circle in the middle of the room, with a mystery star in the middle of it. They found his computer, broken but could still be used. What they found was that Ben was trying to call the cops and left them a message. Please help, something is trying to take me. Ryan and David felt more worried but still had to find their friend. That was the moment when David realized something. He remembered that Ryan told him that his back was burning the night he saw the shadow. David asked Ryan to turn around and pull up his shirt. The shadow left them a message with big letters with words. It's me, help. That must be Ben. Ryan have had enough, yelling the loudest he could. What do you want from us? Show yourself. A huge wind blows them out of the window. Broken bones, blood and cuts. It was still dark outside when both of them were dozed off to find themselves on a hospital bed. Day 5, Sunday. Ryan and David survived the accident. David had a broken leg and a black eye. Ryan had a broken arm with burrs on his forehead. For a strange reason, David had more damage than Ryan. Both of them were worried for each other. Ryan led his way to David. I think we need to stop finding Ben, David told Ryan with a serious face. What are you talking about? Ben almost killed us, Ryan. He is not himself. We can't save him. There must be some way, David shook his head and looked out of the window. If it wasn't Ben, wouldn't we be dead right now? Ryan went out of the door and David suspected that he was on his way to the house again. For long as David could remember, Ryan was always a fighter and would never give up. They were on their own now. On his way out, it was cops right outside the entrance. Ryan ignored them and continued his way. He walked the whole way to Ben's house, alone in the darkness, or as he thought. 2 cops followed him but made sure that Ryan didn't see them. There he was again, in Ben's bedroom on his own. The cops didn't follow him in the house for some reason. They waited outside hiding. All the candles were still burning around the mysterious star. Ryan took one candle. He had a feeling that he wasn't alone in the room. In the hospital where David was laying stressed and worried for Ryan. Who was he kidding? All he wanted was to have his friend back. When he had enough strength to get to the wheelchair that the doctors gave him, David was rolling his way out when his mom and dad stopped him. He felt the pressure to tell them what was going on. That's what he did. They didn't believe a thing he told. In that moment he didn't care if they believed or not. Although he needed their help to get him to Ben's house and put an end to it, David had no plan. David told his parents to wait outside. That's when he noticed the cops hiding behind a bush. He didn't have time to question them. He just went right into the house with the wheelchair until he came to the stairs and had no other choice than to jump with one leg. Standing right in front of the bedroom to find Ben on the floor, lifeless, with Ryan just standing still and did nothing to help. He was just staring at the wall. David crawled to Ben and wanted to see if he was alive. Suddenly, Ryan turned around, not looking like himself. He came closer and closer. David tried to stop him, talking to him so he would come back. Nothing worked. The moment felt so unreal for David. They were at the stairs and David was about to fall. Who are you now? Ryan suddenly stopped. We are Sobrius. Ryan pushed David down the stairs and everything went black in his mind. David's parents and the 2 policemen heard something loud and bashed in the house with the guns loaded, ready for anything. Except for what they witnessed in the moment, everything in the house was broken. They went to the kitchen to find a teenage boy sitting. The chair that he was sitting on was the only thing in the house that was whole. It was Ryan. He had bruises everywhere, looking like nothing in his body was working. Ryan didn't really look like a human. Both of the cops thought the same thing, that Ryan had to go to a hospital. One of them stayed with Ryan, while the other followed a scream that came from the stairs. David laid with his head on his mom's knees. His pulse was weak, however, David looked more alive than Ryan. They found Ben lifeless in his bedroom. The ambulance came and they were on their way to the hospital. David made it but feel it too.
Def's Gourmet. Lisa's day started like any other. The sun casting a warm glow over the small town, unforgettable for both of them. As they arrived at the harbor, the boat bobbed gently on the calm waters, and a light breeze carried the scent of salt through the air. The island seemed distant, appeared serene with its lush greenery and promise of an enchanting evening. The boat ride was pleasant, and Lisa's initial unease began to fade away. The island's restaurant, decorated with twinkling fairy lights, looked like a heaven of romance as they approached. The hostess greeted them with a warm smile and the inviting atmosphere of his promising extraordinary dining experience. The set under the stars held the promise of a magical night. The menu filled with different kinds of dishes from all around the world heightened the anticipation. The elegant music added to the ambience, creating a perfect set for the night. As the night progressed, subtle hints of unease crept in. The lights flickered occasionally, casting shadows on the pathway. The music took on a weird undertone, and Lisa couldn't get rid of the feeling that the island held secrets in its silence. Whispers. David tales of the island's folklore, once fascinating, now carried a darker edge. He spoke of ancient rituals and lost souls that wandered across the island at nights. Lisa tried to dismiss it as storytelling, but a lingering sense of discomfort settled in her stomach. The moonlit dance, which started with a romantic touch, gradually morphed into something more unsettling. The violin played discordant notes, and the shadows seemed to dance with a life of their own. Lisa's extravagant attire felt heavy, and the air got colder as the night wore on. When David suggested exploring the island after dinner, Lisa hesitated. The once inviting pathway now seemed like a portal to the unknown. As they ventured deeper into the foliage, a sinister presence enveloped them, and the shadows seemed to converge with a malicious intent. Suddenly the air was charged with an otherworldly energy. The lanterns flickered violently, and the grotesque shapes on the trees showed up. Unearthly, the sounds echoed through the darkness, and the distant sound became more pronounced, and the panic set on the island's enchantment twisted to a malevolent force. In a moment of a sheer terror, the once charming island transformed into a nightmarish realm. The shadow materialized into grotesque figures, and the air vibrated with anguish cries. Lisa and David, trapped in the nightmare, desperately seeking for an escape, but the island held them captive in its dark, suffocating embrace. The once promised enchantment turned into a wild madness, leaving Lisa and David forever entangled in the horrors that lurked beneath the surface of the seemingly idyllic island.
We were looking on our favorite program on the Sunday night. It got late, and Mom and Dad said to me that I should go to sleep. Tomorrow was the big day, the day we were moving from the city to the big house in the middle of the forest. The next day I woke up early, and my parents had already prepared a big breakfast to celebrate the last breakfast here. When we had finished breakfast, we packed our last things so we could leave as fast as possible. The car was fully loaded, and we were ready to go. Now it was a long drive in front of us. We made a stop on the road at the diner. We ordered some food, and I was starving. When we waited to get it for the food, and Dad started to talk to a stranger in the store. The stranger asked what we were doing out here, and Dad answered that we were moving to a new house around here. I remember the guy reacted a bit weird, like something isn't right out here. I didn't think about that much because I was starting to get really hungry. We got our food. I had ordered a burger with fries. We finished and then continued with the last drive. Now we're about 20 minutes away from the house. We arrived at the house and looked good. It looked good. Mom was complaining on the small details, as always. However, me and Dad thought it was a nice house. There was just one more house located here. We walked to the house and knocked on the door to introduce us, but no one was opening. Now it was time to pack in our stuff into the new house. Mom and Dad moved everything to its right place, and by the time it got darker and darker outside, the evening had come, and it was time to eat our first dinner in the house. After dinner, it was time to get ready for bed, because it had been a long day for us. I brushed my teeth, and Mom prepared my bed, and I tried to go to sleep. That night I had a hard time to sleep. Something felt weird. I had never struggled with sleep before. Now I was alone on the first floor, and my parents was upstairs. In our old home, I slept in the room next to my parents. I thought that it was therefore I had problems to sleep. But a second before I fell asleep, I heard a knocking sound from the basement. Day 2. The next morning I told Dad about this knocking sound, but he said I just imagined and that I maybe just was a nightmare. Dad drove me to school and it was a regular Monday at school. Everyone was tired and wanted one more free day. It was time for lunch and I was sitting with my two best friends. I told them about what I had experienced in the new house, but they just thought it was bullshit and didn't believe me. The school day went to its end. Today it was my first day taking the bus home from school. I got on the bus and sat down. It was just me and the driver in the bus. The bus stopped 1 kilometer away from our house, so I needed to walk the last way. I finally came home after a long day, boring day. I made 2 sandwiches with ham and cheese and drank a glass of juice. Mom and Dad came home and we talked about how the day had been. It got late and we had dinner and then it was time to sleep. I had convinced Dad to get me to be with me downstairs until I had fell asleep. When I was about to fall asleep, any second it happened again. I heard that weird sound. I ran from my room and I saw Dad sitting in the sofa. Dad, did you hear that? He didn't answer. I walked closer to him. I took my hand on his shoulder. He turned his head and he was a monster. His face was all black. Mom! I ran upstairs and there was both Mom and Dad. They woke up and I told them about what happened and they didn't believe me. Dad walked down the stairs with me and the monster wasn't there. Dad stayed with me in the room until I fell asleep. Day 3. Today I felt scared of what happened last night. I didn't want to go to school, instead to be with my dad the whole day. Dad convinced me to go to school, so it was just to listen to him. He drove me to school. I met up my friends and tried to convince them that something is wrong with my new house and told them about what happened last night. Still, they didn't believe me. They made fun of me the rest of the day, but I didn't care because the only thing I could think of this day was about what happened last night. The day felt long because of this, but the school day finally went to its end. This day Dad picked up me. We drove home. We were silent the whole drive home. When we came home, Dad asked me if anything is wrong. I answered that I don't feel safe in here, the new house, after what happened last night. The night, I fell asleep but woke up quickly again of a loud bang. It came from the basement. I decided to investigate it myself. I walked to the door, which leads to the basement, unlocked the door and started to go downstairs when I heard one more bang. This one was lower. I decided to not be scared and get the answer of what's happening in this house. First I didn't see anything strange, but then I saw the man that I saw last night. He hit something with a hammer. I tried to don't make any sound so he wouldn't notice me. I walked up slow again to get my dad and mom. I said to them to be quiet and don't make any sound. We walked to the basement and there he was. Dad walked closer to him and the man realized it. He just looked at us with a fully black face. The man started to run against us. Run! We managed to get upstairs and locked the door. The man started quickly banging on the door. We ran upstairs to my parents' room and locked ourselves in there. The man had managed to break up the basement door. We heard him walking around downstairs. He walked upstairs, opened up all the doors, and the last door was going to us. He tried to open it, but it was locked, so we broke it up. We had hidden in the closet. He opened it up and then carried me. I was screaming in fear. He took me to the basement again. In a short time, Mom and Dad got to the basement and there was me and the man. We just stood there and my face had got fully black as him. At that point, my parents realized I had got possessed of the man and he had taken the control of me. Remember, be aware of the unknown.